and support, Access One is here for you. Serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore, Access One is Chicago-owned and Chicago-run, a trusted IT partner for law firms, clinics, tech startups to manufacturers. We'll make the switch easier than you think. Let's talk. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneinc.com. Rated top 5% in customer satisfaction and a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business. That's accessoneinc.com. Tech made personal, locally.
FestGen Wealth Partners knows you're feeling the pinch of rising cost of living, and you are not alone. Potentially maximize your savings and get the guidance you need through times of uncertainty with a team at FestGen Wealth Partners. Get started at GetRetiredStayRetired.com.
Advisory services offered through FestGen Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Private Client Services, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC. Private Client Services and FestGen Advisors, LLC are unaffiliated entities. Any information discussed does not constitute investment advice. FestGen Advisors and Private Client Services do not offer tax legal advice.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
The summer heat in Chicagoland is no joke. And if your old air conditioner is making funny noises, you may already know it's time for a new unit.
Look, your air conditioner, it's a disaster. People are telling me it's the worst ever.
Don't sweat it, literally. When it comes to cooling your home, Air Right Heating and Cooling does it the best.
And they love our country. Beautiful people.
Rebates are still available, financing is flexible, and at Air Right installations are smooth and professional with no surprises.
It's beautiful. Some people say it's the coolest air anyone's ever felt. I don't know. That's just what they're saying. It's doing an incredible job. Really tremendous.
Plus, tell them AM 560 sent you and Air Right will give you $56 off any service. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling. Doing it right since 1959.
Unreadable, inconsistent part marking is more than a nuisance. It's a liability. When your part marks fade, your quality and credibility also fade. GT Schmidt helps manufacturers leave a permanent mark on their products. Laser, dot peen, scribe, and roll marking systems. Our machines engrave everything from serial numbers, date codes, certification marks, barcodes, 2D matrices, and logos on metal, plastic, anodized coatings, and more. GT Schmidt laser systems provide high speed, versatility, and durability with non-contact precision. Harsh environment, rugged parts? GT Schmidt pin markers produce deep, reliable marks. Parts small or large, flat or round, we engineer systems to your specific application. GT Schmidt, the name for dependable part identification and traceability, setting the standards since 1895. Right now, save 10% off standard GeoMark Pro lasers and standard Styliner pin markers. Visit gtschmidt.com for the marking machine that's right for you. Made in the USA. GT Schmidt, your mark made to last.
Don, can you read this email for me?
Of course. Jeez, I wish they could do something for your eyesight.
Ugh, me too. But you heard what they said. There's nothing we can do.
When vision loss can't be corrected with glasses or surgery, and hope seems lost, turn to Spectrios Institute for Low Vision. Spectrios doctors specialize in the treatment of vision loss related to eye diseases, such as macular degeneration, glaucoma, and diabetic retinopathy. There is hope, supported by science with personalized rehabilitation plans, occupational therapies, and access technology at Spectrios. Talk to a patient service manager. They'll walk you through the program. Spectrios takes BCBS and Medicare insurance. They also have grants for qualifying patients and offer a Seeing is Believing children's outreach program. Go to spectrios.org, located in Wheaton in a building that says it all, the House of Hope. That's SPECTRIOS.org. Spectrios Institute, the head, heart, and eyes approach to better vision. Remember to keep Spectrios Institute a 501c in your estate or legacy planning.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Pluto TV.
Whether you are old or young, no one likes to lose money. The market is at an all-time high. How much risk does your portfolio really have in it? Are you worried that you could lose your hard-earned money? Call TJ Stearns in Arlington Heights at 800-640-2256 for your free risk report. Call right now and we will include a full analysis of your portfolio. Don't wait until it's too late. Call TJ Stearns, a local and longtime sponsor on AM 560. Call 800-640-2256. Call now and tell him AM 560 sent you.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today, expect a morning shower in the area with clouds and sun later. The high will reach 74. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 56. Tomorrow brings sunny and warm weather with a high of 80. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
This hourly segment is brought to you by The Real Story with Jeannie Ives, powered by Breakthrough Ideas, Sunday evening at 7 on AM 560 The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and we pick up today where we left off yesterday, which was updating in real time as information was becoming available. The shooting that occurred at an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas, an ideological motive, as you would have suspected. This is the FBI special agent in charge of the Dallas office, Joe Rothrock.
I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence. It is unfortunately just the most recent example we've seen of targeted violence, to include here in North Texas, where back on July 4th, we saw a coordinated attack carried out against an immigration detention center in Alvarado, Texas. What I can also share with you is that early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack. This will be a whole of government response. There will be no resource not utilized to bring all those individuals who are responsible to bring them to justice and to hold them accountable.
The 29-year-old shooter comes from a family that is left of center, that's for sure. His mother is critical of gun laws in the state of Texas. His sister is a Beto O'Rourke supporter. Mom, some of her postings on social media. Governor Abbott, Senator Cornyn, Senator Cruz, Senator Cruz, how does it make you feel that your action to open up gun laws is responsible for killing of 21 more people? Do you secretly sit in front of a TV and smile a demented smile? You must be proud of all the money that sits in your bank accounts from the gun lobby support. Was it worth it, Governor Abbott? How about you, senators? When you prioritize money over people, this is what you get. Here's my hope. May you be reminded of the deaths every time you spend that precious blood money you have received from the gun lobby. Hope you think of it 100% when you attend the NRA meeting in a few days. Senator Cornyn, I realize you suddenly had something in D.C. come up where you won't be attending. It's unfortunate that you don't even have the spine to stand up to the NRA and tell them the real reason you aren't attending. You are a coward, a spineless coward. Why have our government officials failed us? They're lust for money and power. It's about time we vote out spineless tools and then bring in people who actually care about one another. When reached by phone yesterday by a reporter for The Independent, that same mom, I'm sorry I can't talk to you right now. I'm sorry, but I just can't talk to you now. A dad is a retired mechanical engineer. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line and text line. Another incident of leftist-inspired violence, and a spot that has been hit before. Again, this is the same ICE facility that was targeted by nearly a dozen conspirators on July 4th for attacks on ICE officers, including some trans-Tifa types among the 10 that were rounded up. Ted Cruz, that senator, that the mom of the shooter who took himself out, was referring to in some of her social media posts, as I just mentioned, had this to say.
This is the third shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop. To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, stop. To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their families, stop. This has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree. That's fine. That's the democratic process. But your political opponents are not Nazis.
And again, one detainee is dead. 2 more were injured. No law enforcement officers were injured in the shooting. I don't believe the identity of the detainee has been revealed yet. But Ted Cruz wasn't the only one sending a message about the demonization of law enforcement officers. J.D. Vance had this to say.
But we know this person was politically motivated. They were politically motivated to go after law enforcement. They were politically motivated to go after people who are enforcing our border. And I think that is the most disgusting thing. The very people who keep us safe ought to be honored and protected and praised by Democrats and Republicans alike. It is time to stop the rhetorical assault on law enforcement. Because here's what happens. Because here's what happens when Democrats like Gavin Newsom did say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence. You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell, and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. And for emphasis, something that J.D. Vance referenced, which is, I think, more incendiary than just the name calling, because the name calling has become so rendered almost meaningless through overuse and misapplication. Everybody who disagrees with me is a Nazi. Okay, we get it. We get your play. Right? Everybody's Nazi. It becomes a punchline almost. I get it. You're not a serious person. You don't have the capacity to make a credible argument on the topic. There is no constructive engagement with you. I understand. That's what you're communicating when you say you disagree with me, therefore you're a Nazi. Understood. But the other piece of what J.D. Vance said, the lies that the D.C. press corps tell about what ICE is or is not doing, the lies they tell, to try to buttress the case that they are, in fact, a terrorist organization, as our very own governor has referenced them to be. Terror and cruelty is the point. That's what he said about ICE operations in Chicago. J.B. Pritzker did. The lying they tell, the stories they make up, complete fabrications. J.D. Vance went off on that and gave a prime example.
maybe the worst of all the fake news, and I'm sure we have an NBC reporter out there. It's a tough competition, my friends, to be clear. But maybe the worst, I said maybe the worst, is NBC News. And they said that immigration enforcement, you know what they said? That immigration enforcement had detained a 5-year-old autistic girl in order to get to that girl's father. Turned out that story was a complete fabrication. It was a complete dishonest lie. But when you go around and lie about our law enforcement and you tell them that they're mistreating 5-year-old girls, what do you think is going to happen? When Democratic politicians incur doxing, when they encourage us to unmask ICE enforcement officers, what do you think is going to happen? When the mayor of Los Angeles encourages violent protesters to get in the face of our law enforcement, what do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen is political violence, and political violence has gotten out of control in this country. We got to stop it. We got to condemn it. And that starts, unfortunately, at the very top of the Democratic Party.
The lies they invent. Abrego Garcia is a Maryland man. That's the anecdote that J.D. Vance shared. They're disappearing people. They're ripping kids from the arms of their moms. They're taking grandma away in cuffs. They're breaking up families. That does not, that incents more violence than just the name calling, and it's completely disreputable. And good for J.D. Vance for calling out NBC and providing an example to the point. And then you get, of course, the both sidesism aspect of the coverage. This was ABC News, their coverage of yesterday's shootings at the Dallas ICE facility.
While critics say the mask-wearing, often plainclothes ICE officers terrorize communities, Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons says they're just doing their jobs, and he says attacks on ICE officers are up 1,000% since January.
1,000% more than we ever had, and it's just getting worse, and these keep getting elevated and elevated.
Last month, this man was arrested at this same facility after authorities say he threatened to detonate a bomb in a backpack. And they say multiple armed assailants in tactical gear attacked an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas. On July 4th, one officer was wounded. This latest shooting comes amid a new poll tonight asking Americans, how serious a problem do you think political violence is today? 71% say it's very serious. 22% say somewhat serious. And when asked, do you think the way people talk about politics these days is contributing to the violence here? 82% said yes.
And getting more serious with each passing day. I mean, at least they included the other incidents that reference the other incidents that occurred at that Dallas facility, the other incidents of violence. But you started the product, you heard the predicate, which was, some say that plainclothes ICE officers are terrorizing communities, while others note that it's law enforcement that is being subjected to the real violence. And it is not some say and others say. There is what the evidence tells us. All right, we'll pick this up on the other side. It's time to check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 60 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Mostly sunny with a high of 71 degrees today. Reviews of financial records show Illinois state leaders have increased discretionary spending by more than $16 billion since Governor J.B. Pritzker took office nearly 7 years ago. Correspondent Greg Bishop fills us in.
Illinois House Minority Leader Tony McCombie said Pritzker's increased spending's to blame.
This EO talks about the SNAP changes. Well, look at your own self. His own error rate since 2017 has gone up from 5.73 to 11.56%.
I'm Greg Bishop.
They didn't win the grand prize, but they won America's hearts. The Leo High School Boys Choir placed fourth on America's Got Talent last night. Big things in the future for those young gentlemen. This report is sponsored by Blindstar.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now check.
Larry Elder explains the legacy of Charlie Kirk.
He had the ability to change people's minds. It's one thing to provoke. It's another thing to have a conversation, a dialogue with people. And at the end of that dialogue, convince someone that maybe, just maybe, I should rethink my assumptions. Maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. This is the impact this man has had.
The Larry Elder Show. Weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
Unreadable, inconsistent part marking is more than a nuisance. It's a liability. When your part marks fade, your quality and credibility also fade. GT Schmidt helps manufacturers leave a permanent mark on their products. Laser, dot peen, scribe, and roll marking systems. Our machines engrave everything from serial numbers, date codes, certification marks, barcodes, 2D matrices, and logos on metal, plastic, anodized coatings, and more. GT Schmidt laser systems provide high speed, versatility, and durability with non-contact precision. Harsh environment, rugged parts? GT Schmidt pin markers produce deep, reliable marks. Parts small or large, flat or round, we engineer systems to your specific application. GT Schmidt, the name for dependable part identification and traceability, setting the standards since 1895. Right now, save 10% off standard GeoMark Pro lasers and standard Styliner pin markers. Visit gtschmidt.com for the marking machine that's right for you. Made in the USA. GT Schmidt, your mark made to last.
It was a typical day. You were doing the usual, but then you met up with a friend at Weinstock Market and Lounge in Woodstock. Wow! The small-town charm and turn-of-the-century building set the tone for a classic outing. Their charcuterie pleased your palate like you never imagined. The Chicago beef sandwich made your taste buds dance. And the hand-selected wines from small vineyards around the world, so perfect. All paired with amazing live music. Weinstock Market and Lounge changes your day from ordinary to extraordinary.
Weinstock Market and Lounge, voted McHenry County's best wine shop and best of Fox 2 years in a row. Open Tuesday through Saturday, 3 p.m. till 11 p.m. Live music on weekends. Open mic nights on Tuesdays. Enjoy the fresh baked pizza and Chicago beef sandwiches. Wine favorites from Italy, New Zealand, France, and California. And a full menu of handcrafted cocktails. Plan a trip to Weinstock Market and Lounge on the square in downtown Woodstock. Mention AM 560 and receive 10% off any purchase.
Protect your liver and give it the support it deserves with Active Liver from New Nordic. Find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or at newnordicusa.com.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today, expect a morning shower in the area, then a mix of clouds and sun with a high of 74. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 56. Tomorrow brings sunny and warm weather with a high reaching 80. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, talking about the latest instance of leftist violence. This 29-year-old who opened fire in the direction, I guess, of a Sally Port at the ICE facility in Dallas and killed an ICE detainee, wounded two others, turned the gun on himself. And again, had anti-ICE scrawled on the bullet casings that were found. Like, literally, that's what it said, anti-ICE. And Kash Patel, the FBI director, of course, posted a picture on social media of said. So, that combined with the political views of some family members and something that J.D. Vance mentioned, too, we just heard, that some of the evidence that they have hasn't been made public yet, that they know that he was inspired to commit violence in furtherance of his political beliefs. Well, that's how he thought about it, that committing violence would further his political beliefs. Of course, it won't. But that's what he thought about it. And that's what a lot on the left think. Not only that it will, but because it will, it's justified. And there's this effort in this instance, like in every instance, to try to jujitsu this into being a problem that's across the board in equal distribution. We all have to come together. It's statements that you get from the left like, Chucky Schumer. I don't know if Joe and Eileen Bailey approved this statement or not, or if he consulted with him. His imaginary friends, Joe and Eileen Bailey, that are senior advisors. But this is a good example of what is done. Of course, politically, I know I have to mouth the words of condemning political violence. We all need to come together, though, and do what, you ask? Come on.
Violence is just terrible. Everybody, right, left, center, I don't care what your politics are, has to speak out strongly against it. But look, I think, and I don't know what's happened here, and I don't know about the guns, but we need better laws on guns. I mean, we got something done a few years ago, but it's just rampant. And we have to do more. I'm the author of the Brady Law, the assault weapons ban. It's become almost every day one of these things happen. And
left, right. I mean, who knows who's inspired by what sort of belief system? It's across the board. We all need to come together in unity and ban guns. That's something we can do together. And then you have, flax for MSNBC, like this former FBI official. That's how he was described. Christopher O'Leary, who tries to muddy the issue on behalf of his employer by invoking the Christchurch mosque shooter and saying, what you're seeing here from the Annunciation Church, the Annunciation Church school shooter, from this shooter, from Charlie Kirk's assassin, tactics of the white supremacists.
The first time we really saw that was Brenton Tarrant in the Christchurch shooting in a mosque in New Zealand, and he was a fierce, white supremacist and neo-Nazi, and wrote all over his weapon and his rounds very hateful information. So to see this coming from, potentially the other side of the political spectrum is a little strange, because it is not something, if you are trying to carry out some kind of message countering, more extreme right-wing stuff. I don't know why you would, use a tactic that a famous white supremacist who has been revered and copycatted over the years by other white supremacists, why you would do that. But it does appear that people are moving in that direction because they want people to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. Again, terrorism is theater. They want people to understand their message and why they're doing this.
Yeah, it's mainly white supremacists because, white supremacy is the major threat to America. Chris Wray would tell you that. And so Agent O'Leary's a bit confused about that. He's confused about a lot of things. He should probably stick to what he knows about law enforcement, policing, and less what he understands about philosophy. Let me say again, a neo-Nazi, a white supremacist, is a man of the left. Identitarianism has no home with conservatives. So white supremacy, let's not even get into the founding of the KKK, but white supremacy is identitarianism. It is a sickness, if I might borrow a word from Brandon Johnson. It is a sickness of the left. There is no right-left if you want to invoke white supremacy. It's left and left. All of this is identitarianism. The Trans-Tifa, the people from other parts of the world that are used as mascots, black and brown people from other parts of the world yearning to breathe free. This is how the left talks about it. It is always through an identitarian lens, which is a particular sickness of the left. There is no right-left on this. It's left and left and left. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Douglas Murray has a good piece in City Journal about the leftists' political violence as violence as the means to the left's political ends, which has long been a feature of leftism. The Marxist revolutionaries that were in the Weather Underground, the Marxist revolutionaries today that are in Antifa. He writes, in response to recent criticism of the rhetoric, some on the left have pointed to frivolous right-wing reactions to the 2022 hammer attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband in San Francisco. But such tit-for-tat arguments miss the larger point. The issue is not whether both sides can produce individuals willing to commit political violence. That much is undeniable. The real question is whether those individuals will find a supportive ecosystem. To answer this question in America today, we must ask another. Is there any scenario in which someone involved in political violence could expect preferment within American public life? For instance, can Pelosi's attacker, a mentally disturbed man who cited right-coded motivations, ever expect a warm welcome in the conservative mainstream? The answer is almost certainly no. By contrast, there are many cases of left-wing figures who have engaged in political violence and later found not just acceptance, but veneration within sympathetic institutions. An obvious case is Angela Davis. Then an assistant professor at UCLA, Davis purchased the guns in the 1970 Marin County courthouse attack that killed Judge Harold Joseph Haley and others. She denied responsibility, and a jury acquitted her, but her involvement did nothing to derail her career. If anything, it propelled it. Over the decades, Davis has become a celebrated quote-unquote thinker. Her writings widely cited, her lectures in demand, her association with political violence lends her a certain cachet rather than censure. And you see here on CNN or MSNBC, Angela Davis as a thinker, as a commentator. Bill Ayers, now a retired professor from UIC. Bernadine Dorn, now a retired former head of the Family Law Clinic at Northwestern Law School. Kilgore, a convicted terrorist, domestic terrorist, who's now a professor at U of I. It's just some examples. Veneration, not censure. That's the point. He calls it the gray zone, where you're not exactly condoning it and you're not exactly condemning it. And that's what you're getting. And when you're not exactly condoning it, you're not exactly condemning it, so that the focus isn't on that line you're walking, you do the both sides. You do the complete refocus. And listen to this one. You know what the problem is? The problem isn't the demonization of law enforcement officers lying about what ICE does. That's not the problem. The problem, according to Veronica Cardenas, who incredibly, but this is really telling, former assistant chief counsel for ICE, Veronica Cardenas, former assistant chief counsel for ICE. This is what she had to say on MSNBC yesterday.
Looking at ICE in this moment.
It is very difficult, not just in ICE, but of all immigrants, and immigrant lawyers, anyone who's in the immigration field, because this isn't an isolated incident. We have seen death among non-citizens being increased, and the people, the victims here, that the two killed were non-citizens being detained at that time. And so it is very difficult. It has been a very decisive environment, and the rhetoric does have to stop. Just yesterday, Homeland Security released a propaganda video on their social website stating or using Nintendo's Pokemon to catch them all and continuing to dehumanize non-citizens.
Dehumanizing non-citizens, that's the problem, you see. Try to flip the script so they can avoid the question of, are you in this gray zone? Is that what you're doing? Are you gray zoning me? You're not going to condemn it, but you're not going to, essentially endorse it. You're going to walk that line. And then you're going to talk to me about guns. And you're going to talk to me about the demonization of people in this country illegally. And you're going to say, well, these tactics that you see from these leftist assassins, this is, coming from the white supremacist playbook. And of course, white supremacists are men and women of the right. No, they're not. But that's what you see playing out right now. This is their strategic approach to try to obfuscate what they're really doing. Tony, Downers Grove.
Hey, Dan. Yeah, well, social media is going to continue to be a problem. It's one of the biggest problems. But, the founding fathers, and I know this is probably a pedestrian comment, but they did make a mistake, and that's not requiring a national language. It's a problem, and some of this stems from that. No different than we don't require any elected official to be born in America. Now, that doesn't mean this stuff still couldn't happen, but it certainly would help from people being influenced, I think. Pedestrian maybe, but it's a problem.
All right, Tony, thanks. Dave in Crystal Lake.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. Yeah, the media and social media, they want to lump racist in with the Republican Party. And you had mentioned that. It's just not right. Because I'm a Republican, but I'm not racist.
Yeah, right. Thanks for the call, Dave. I mean, race, I mean, the issue of race and racism does have to do with our politics, because there are people in the political arena that want to make policy based on race or other identitarian characteristics, rather than everyone being treated equally, equal protection under the law, equal justice by the law based on your conduct. So we can't just ignore it. And we have to understand it is the central feature, the central organizing principle of the new Marxist Party. It's a proxy for class, but they've used race and other identitarian characteristics as their means to generate solidarity in purported marginality. This is their coalition. And as is always the case with these would-be revolutionaries, and that is the design, a revolution against the founding principles of this country to usher in a Marxist paradise. I mean, it's central to the philosophical tracks that are their guiding lights. Eduardo, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. Well, I need to remind Senator Schumer that we had a Micaiah Johnson. He was an Afghan war veteran and BML, took out 5 police officers in Dale. Remember that?
I do.
Some years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to need extra security on rooftops from now on.
Well, you can't guard every rooftop 24/7. Thanks for the call, Eduardo. But I mean, I hear what you're saying in terms of, what is the resources you have to cover, to have a perimeter as wide as possible, I suppose. But I don't think we're going to police state our way out of this. We're not going to have people on every street corner or every rooftop. We have to address the larger cultural problem, I think. Something else, though, just on this topic, Kim Strassel points out, the press too often has a one-and-done approach to news. So few publications, for example, really dug into the Department of Justice's Friday court filing about the assassination plot against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, trans man of the left. Most headlines centered around the news that prosecutors are seeking a 30-year sentence for the would-be assassin who pled guilty back in April. But the details of the filings are disturbing. We now discover that this would-be assassin, in his own words, was shooting for 3 justices, not just Kavanaugh. He conducted detailed research on his targets, sleuthing out home addresses and creating maps with location pins. Investigators included text messages on Discord, there's Discord again, that clearly laid his motive of stopping, quote, Roe v. Wade from being overturned, unquote, and more, since, quote, killing at least one, quote unquote, would, quote, change the votes for decades to come, unquote. The document notes that it was the May 2nd, 2022 leaking of the draft opinion in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization that provoked a flurry of the would-be assassins' research, including into body armor, firearms, and break-in methods. He then flew to D.C. in June for his attempt on Kavanaugh's life. That leak might have ended in murder. And do we have someone named as the responsible party for that leak, the leak of the Dobbs opinion? Has that case been solved? No, of course not. And as I mentioned, he's trans. He uses the first name Sophie and female pronouns now. Struggled with gender identity and the attempt, and that an attempt to, quote, live as a trans woman ended in failure, which worsened his mental health. So his attorneys are using his gender identity issues as, an attempt to, they're attempting to use that as a mitigating factor for the purposes of sentencing. Frank, Board of Trade.
Yeah, people's memory is short. They forget that under previous administrations, many, many more people were deported. Unless this administration gets away from the worst of the worst story and starts quoting numbers, 10 million under Clinton, 5 million under Bush, they're going to have to do that every day as a reminder.
Thanks for the call, Frank. Robert in Bloomingdale.
Good morning. I agree with you on 99% of this stuff, but when you look at the Nazis when they came into power, they were a socialist movement. But who did they go after? They went after the communists. Now, were the communists the people of the right, or were they communists with the people of the left? They went after the competition. That's what they did.
Yeah, the left versus the left. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Right,
thank you for making.
Exactly right. But
thank you for making my point for me. When the Mensheviks, when the Leninists or the Bolsheviks went after the Mensheviks, was somebody on the right? No, they were both of the left, going at different paces, weren't they? Having slightly different strategic approaches. What are Nazis and communists? Totalitarians fighting over who's the king of the totalitarians. Men of the left.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer. Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
It was a typical day. You were doing the usual, but then you met up with a friend at Weinstock Market and Lounge in Woodstock. Wow! The small-town charm and turn-of-the-century building set the tone for a classic outing. Their charcuterie pleased your palate like you never imagined. The Chicago beef sandwich made your taste buds dance. And the hand-selected wines from small vineyards around the world, so perfect. All paired with amazing live music. Weinstock Market and Lounge changes your day from ordinary to extraordinary.
Weinstock Market and Lounge, voted McHenry County's best wine shop and best of Fox 2 years in a row. Open Tuesday through Saturday, 3 p.m. till 11 p.m. Live music on weekends. Open mic nights on Tuesdays. Enjoy the fresh baked pizza and Chicago beef sandwiches. Wine favorites from Italy, New Zealand, France, and California. And a full menu of handcrafted cocktails. Plan a trip to Weinstock Market and Lounge on the square in downtown Woodstock. Mention AM 560 and receive 10% off any purchase.
If you or someone you love are getting high quotes for dental implants, visit almostfreeteeth.com today. With a medical PPO insurance plan, it's possible to save 90% off on average to be able to smile again. Check if you qualify now at almostfreeteeth.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 6:06, will Jim Comey get indicted for perjuring himself in testimony before Congress before the statute runs on what he testified to in September of 2025? They've got a September 30th deadline. 6 o'clock, AM 560 WIND.
They're still looking into his motive.
I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. The gunman opened fire at an immigration enforcement facility in Dallas, Texas from a rooftop. No ICE agents were hurt, but one detainee was killed, 2 others critically injured. The FBI calls it a targeted attack. Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin just told Fox.
We saw those shell casings with the anti-ICE messages, and we saw the monstrous actions of this individual targeting our ICE law enforcement. This has to stop. The political violence in this country must come to an end before there's further bloodshed.
The shooter is dead after turning the rifle on himself, identified as 29-year-old Joshua John from Oklahoma. The FBI director that President Trump fired back in 2017 could soon be indicted over what he told Congress about the Russia-Trump collusion investigation back to the 2016 election that the president's long called the Russia hoax.
We're told a grand jury in Virginia is looking at evidence relating to allegations that former FBI Director James Comey may have lied to Congress on September 30th, 2020. That date is very specific because the statute of limitations for lying before Congress is typically 5 years. Next Tuesday marks exactly 5 years since his remote testimony.
That's Fox's David Spund. This days after the president had pressured Attorney General Bondi to move forward with charges against Comey and 2 others who've investigated him. Now, Senator Adam Schiff and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Today, the president will sign an executive order to facilitate the deal with American business leaders to keep TikTok operating in the U.S.
The White House announced a potential agreement earlier this week for ByteDance, TikTok's Chinese-owned operator, to divest from the popular social media app. A 2024 law approved by Congress requires ByteDance to divest or be banned in the U.S. over national security and privacy concerns. President Trump has signed multiple extensions keeping TikTok active as negotiations with China continue.
Fox's Jared Halpern. America's listening to Fox News.
WIND, Chicago.
Good morning. It is 60 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Hunters are reminded about location where deers can be tested for chronic wasting disease or CWD. Free of charge services offered through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources and allows hunter harvested deer to be tracked for wildlife biologists to be able to monitor the distribution of CWD throughout the state. More information can be found on the Hunt Illinois app. A 39-year-old woman was arrested on Monday after witnesses say she broke into a private aviation hangar at Midway International Airport. She stole a shuttle bus and then drove it out on the taxiway. The woman reportedly told police that she was testing security at the facility. The Cook County Sheriff's Office has received a grant from the Illinois Department of Transportation to help pay for additional countywide patrols that are focused on speeding. Officials with the department say they're also going to be cracking down on drivers who use the shoulder to bypass slow traffic. Those additional patrols started today and will run through the end of the month. City officials in Broadview are demanding the fence around the ICE building be taken down. Broadview Fire Department sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security within hours of the fence going up, informing the agency that that fence was built without a permit and is currently blocking Broadview Fire Department access to that road. The Department of Homeland Security is yet to respond to the city's demands. And they may not have won the $1 million grand prize, but the Leo High School Boys Choir won America's Hearts. The Southside High School Choir placed 4th on the America's Got Talent finale last night. Here's a little what it sounded like. Congratulations to these amazing young men. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have a Blue Cross, Blue Shield, PPO, or FEP, you could save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Learn more and check if you qualify at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
Join AM 560 on Thursday, October 2nd in Glen Ellen for a conservative conversation, an evening of insight, inspiration, and ideas on how conservatives can unite around shared values to advance a common agenda. Speakers will include Pastor Lorenzo Sewell of 180 Church in Detroit, Jeannie Ives, and John Anthony, with each bringing a unique perspective on faith, policy, and community leadership. Get your tickets today at 560theanswer.com/conversation. That's 560theanswer.com/conversation.
You ever wonder why Verizon charges twice as much as Pure Talk for the same basic service? Think it might have something to do with the fact that Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion. That's billion champion with a B? Yeah, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. That's why they can offer unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Save an additional 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say the words micro. That's pound 250, micro.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft. If that happens, LifeLock gives you the U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims. Your agent handles it all. In fact, they're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. It's nice to have an expert like that on your side. Save up to 40% off your first year with promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Attention investors with a 401k, IRA, or retirement account. The dollar has lost over 25% of its value in the past 5 years, and it's only going to get worse. Are you prepared for what's about to happen next? We are Advantage Gold, the #1 customer-rated gold IRA company in America, and we are helping Americans prepare for the great de-dollarization by diversifying their portfolios with physical precious metals. We've partnered with former chief economist of the IMF, Kenneth Rogoff, to give away his latest book called Our Dollar, Your Problem, a must-read for investors. Call 800-741-GOLD, and we'll rush a free copy of Our Dollar, Your Problem to your doorstep and include our special gold IRA investing kit, valued at $49. The dollar is losing value fast. Call 800-741-GOLD now to get your free copy of Our Dollar, Your Problem and our free gold IRA investing kit. Supplies are limited. Consult your tax and financial professional before investing. Call 800-741-4653. That's 800-741-GOLD.
Relatively quiet as you head into town this morning. We got a trouble spot at I-55 inbound between Veterans Parkway and Veterans Memorial Tollway, and that's right there at 355. It is stop and go due to an accident. About a 20-minute gap right there, so I expect some taillights there. The Eden's looking good both directions, no major issues there. On the Kennedy, the express lanes have opened up, so it looks like traffic is flowing in nicely. The Dan Ryan looking good. Traffic starting to creep up a little bit in the express lanes inbound between Pershing and Stevenson, normal for this time of morning. The Stevenson cooking up some slow traffic on the ramp to the inbound Dan Ryan. That's between Ashland and the Dan Ryan Expressway, so expect some minor delays in that area. And the Tri-State Tollway right there northbound between Reagan Memorial and the Eisenhower. Slow ramp to the outbound Ike, so expect a few minor issues there. This traffic update is service of Quick Delivery Service. When you need same-day delivery, when you need the fastest service, when you need a last-minute delivery, go to QuickDelivery.com and get a quote right now. That's QuickDelivery.com. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now check out the forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today, expect a morning shower in the area with clouds and sun later. The high will reach 74. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 56. Tomorrow brings sunny and warm weather with a high of 80. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Just one postscript on the conversation we were having last hour with respect to the shooting at the ICE facility in Dallas, but this idea of totalitarian left versus totalitarian right violence when it's all just totalitarian left. It's all identitarian, totalitarian left. Identitarian, totalitarian turn out to be synonyms in terms of where they take you. There's a good piece by Jerry Dunleavy over at John Solomon's JustTheNews.com that was making my point, that that makes my point and provides a little bit more historical context, that any sort of tension between Germany and Russia back in the World War II era, or between communists and so-called Nazis generally, this is totalitarians fighting over who's the top totalitarian. Men of the left. Deprivations of the left, all of it. He writes, the modern iteration of the militant Antifa movement draws its name, symbolism, and inspiration from Antifaschistische Action, a project of the German Communist Party in the 20s and 30s, which targeted center-left parties as the true fascist enemy and aided the rise to power of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. A project of the German Communist Party aided the rise to power of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. You following me? And he gets into details I don't want to go into because we got to get to Comey, but I'll post it on X for you to read and share so you can disabuse some of the dum-dums in your circle who think that this is, a right-left issue, and we're trying to figure out if more of the violence intended to achieve political ends is coming from the left or the right. There's nothing to figure. On to Jim Comey. The report is that we got a U.S. Attorney's Office in Virginia on the clock, that they are trying to decide whether or not to indict Jim Comey for perjuring himself under oath when he testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. This is what everybody's suggesting it is. They're looking at testimony that he provided before the Senate Judiciary Committee on September 30th of 2020. 5-year statute of limitations. So you got 5 days before the statute of limitation runs out. And if you think you can make a case that would pass the reasonable doubt standard, you've got 5 days to decide to move and make it. I can barely, ask this question, with a straight face, but would you like to see the U.S. Attorney's Office go after Jim Comey for perjury? Or, legitimately, if they don't think they can make out the case, but they do it under political pressure from Trump, or perceived political pressure from Trump because of his posts on Truth Social and so forth, and Comey would end up being acquitted, would that be damaging? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. This exchange between Cruz and Comey back at that Senate Judiciary Committee hearing in question on September 30th of 2020 is particularly salient. There's something to it. So this is a little bit of a run-up, but it gets to what I think is the central issue in terms of trying to make out a perjury case against Comey, and it's what Comey testified to about leaking information versus what Andy McCabe, his deputy, testified to. There's an inconsistency. One of them has to be lying. Well, they both could be lying in different ways for different reasons, but on this one particular issue of what Comey did or didn't do, one of them is not telling the truth. But first of all, I think the context here is important, and it always is, which is, is this a guy, otherwise a man of integrity? Would it be out of character for Jim Comey to lie? Margot in Burr Ridge on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I absolutely do think they should go after him, and not just him, all these other people too, because the process is the punishment. The lawyers will get their money, and they need to be made an example of. They need to have other bureaucrats see what happens. Now, somehow he became worth like $14 million as director of the FBI, not coming from wealthy family. So let's separate him from as much of that as possible, because he is not a good person and he's a bad guy, and they've done it to us. They did to so many Trump officials. It's incredible. They tried it with KT McFarland, so she just gave up and quit. That's generally what happened. And so I think we need to turn the tables on him and be every bit as ruthless as they are.
Thanks for the call, Margot. Well, to Margot's point, refreshing everybody's recollection, this is some of what Jim Comey did.
Mr. Comey, you testified earlier today that you have concerns whenever the FBI doesn't operate in a, quote, competent and honest way. In your judgment, was the way that the FBI handled the Russia investigation, the surveillance of the Trump campaign, the Carter Page FISA application, the Michael Flynn investigation, was that handled in a competent and honest way?
First, Senator Cruz, there was no, to my knowledge, surveillance of the Trump campaign. I think the overall investigation of the Russian interference and whether Americans were associated with it was conducted in an honest, competent, independent way.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Is that what the record reflects? I mean, the body of evidence? Mm-hmm. This is, again, almost 5 years ago. Listen to this exchange about funding for the creation of the Steele dossier. And then ask yourself that question that I posed. Is Jim Comey otherwise a straight shooter, honest guy? Man you can trust.
When did you learn that the Steele dossier was being funded by the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign?
Again, I believe your predicate is inaccurate, but I first learned of the Steele dossier in late September of 2016 and understood that it was funded by political opposition to President Trump or candidate Trump. I didn't know the specifics of which part of the opposition, but I knew that it was political opposition research funded.
When? When did you learn that?
I think about the time I was briefed on it, so about the same time, probably third week of September.
So you were personally aware that the political opposition, whether the DNC or Hillary Clinton or whatever campaign bucket it was coming from, it was the opposing party that was funding it. You were specifically aware of it in September. Why didn't you tell the FISA court? Why did you admit that over and over and over again on applications you submitted? Didn't the court deserve to know that?
My recollection is the FISA court was alerted to the possibility that it was a politically biased reporting.
Your recollection is false. The FISA court was not told that it was funded by the DNC. That's one of the omissions that your FBI did repeatedly to the federal court. All right. Go ahead.
That's not what I just said. So,
what did you just say?
I said my recollection is the court was alerted that there was potential political bias in this reporting.
Political bias is different from saying it was funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign. You just testified to this committee. You were specifically aware of that, and yet you repeatedly did not inform the court of it when you were getting an order to essentially weaponize the Democratic opposition research.
The way that Comey answers questions and that back and forth. No, I didn't say that it was disclosed by us to the FISA court, even though we knew it. I said the FISA court was alerted to the possibility. Alerted by who to the possibility? And when? And my understanding, your understanding from who? From where? And even if that turned out to be true, you had a responsibility, as Ted Cruz just said, to disclose what you knew to be true about the funding of that document that you just conceded. And then you said, I didn't say that. You just conceded you knew that, not a possibility of bias, you conceded you knew it was opposition research funded by Trump's opposition. And you didn't disclose it to the court. And that's what the Inspector General criticized you and your agency for, one of 17 material omissions. What you failed to do as an officer of the court in providing the complete information that was relevant to obtaining FISA warrants. You didn't do it, and you didn't do it purposefully. And now you're parsing words purposefully to hide what you knew and didn't disclose. I mean, that to me is, I know it's not that's not something that I think you can make out a perjury charge. But those are the kinds of exchanges over the last decade that Jim Comey has become infamous for. He is just fundamentally dishonest. And I don't know that there's a better exchange that I could recall that illustrates that. Fundamentally dishonest. And we're talking about the director of the FBI, former top prosecutor of the DOJ, making material misrepresentations to a court of law by omission, knowingly. So if they can't get him on that, but they can get him on whether or not he was honest about leaking information to a media source, fine. I'll take it. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. And it continues. Listen to the back and forth, again, with Cruz and Comey. This was the best exchange on the day in question, September 30th of 2020. Cruz on the Steele subsource, which turned out to be a Russian asset, also not disclosed.
Knew some people to whom they could speak, is trying to recruit spies against the U.S. government. You have a Russian agent that is the basis for an FBI investigation, and the FBI is the one who had investigated them. Your testimony is you didn't know. Did it occur to you to ask? Did you ask any questions or do any due diligence on this at all?
I don't remember anything about the facts that have been revealed recently about the subsource. And as I said earlier, I think that cuts both ways, but I don't know how the people running the investigation thought about it.
Well, you didn't tell the FISA court that either, and I suspect the FISA court would have had a very different assessment if you had told them that the basis for your application was what you were being told from a suspected Russian asset.
Cruz's summation of Comey's testimony on that day, nearly 5 years ago.
This investigation of the president was corrupt. The FBI and the Department of Justice were politicized and weaponized. And in my opinion, there are only two possibilities: that you were deliberately corrupt or woefully incompetent. And I don't believe you were incompetent.
Either corrupt or incompetent. I don't believe you were incompetent. That about sums it for me on Jim Comey. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Corey in Woodlawn, Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, morning, Dan. These individuals are directly responsible for the degradation of trust that American citizens have placed in these institutions. They have imbued a negative mark on these agencies. And the only way to get it out is to prosecute these guys. Show that these institutions have some integrity left and prosecute this individual. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Corey. Yeah, I'm with you. Text from 847. The prospect of a Comey indictment almost makes me want to go and organize 9/30/25 shells on the seashore. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Comey moment. Happened upon this 8647 artistic rendering on the beach, did you? Just in terms of Comey's integrity, for those, again, within your circle who still believe this Elliot Ness routine that he does on MSNBC and CNN and on book tours and so forth. This was his back and forth on that same day in that same hearing, September 30th, 2020, with Senator Mike Lee. And this was Mike Lee sort of explaining what he thought about Jim Comey initially and what he thought about Jim Comey after having experienced him as the director of the FBI.
I trusted you. I have to say today, I'm very disappointed to see that those promises now to me seem very insincere. Now, Mr. Comey, with all due respect, you don't seem to know anything about an investigation that you ran. So how can you now, as a private citizen and former FBI director, show up and then speculate freely regarding any alleged ties between President Putin and President Trump? I heard you say just a moment ago. Now, I hope I misunderstood you. Please correct me if I did. I think I heard you say that you still speculate they might have something on President Trump because of how President Trump refers or doesn't refer to President Putin in public. This, of course, takes into account nothing about the fact that sources you've relied on in the past have turned out not to be accurate. You didn't identify the inaccuracies subsequently to the FISA court. It acknowledges nothing about the fact that there are perfectly reasonable explanations as to why one leader would refer to a foreign leader in a certain tone, or the fact that this is the same tone that he uses in referring to other world leaders, particularly those world leaders in parts of the country where we've had some issues. So honestly, how can you as a private citizen now come to us and in your capacity as former FBI director and speculate so freely regarding these alleged ties when you don't seem to know anything about this investigation that you ran?
Katie in Arlington Heights, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer. Hey, Katie.
Hi.
Hi, you're on. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Sorry. Yeah, I'm calling because it's really unfortunate that President Trump has had to come out on his own behalf, urging some expediency in addressing this. The level of corruption of the left, from Jim Comey with Hillary Clinton and scrubbing with bleach and saying that no prosecutor would no prosecutor would go after her and all this other stuff, between Comey and Brennan and Clinton and all of them, there has to be serious consequences. This is the demise of our democracy. Everything they project now, everything they say, it's staggering, like the hypocrisy and the projection of it. They're criticizing Jimmy Kimmel being removed and trying to put that on the Trump administration when it had nothing to do with that. It is as Bill O'Reilly would say, the folks that reacted to what was happening. But everything becomes a projection, and it's a projection of what they've done. The seriousness, though, of it is the demise of our democracy because of them. So we really have to see consequences, legitimate, serious prosecutions, jailings, consequences for people that have embarked upon this, starting with Comey. And it needs to happen now.
Thanks for the call, Katie. Pete in Montgomery.
Good morning, Dan. So Comey needs to be prosecuted, but there is the point that started with General Flynn being unmasked.
Yeah.
And then that started this whole thing. And I remember Trey Gowdy saying, that's the only crime I can see, and it will be found and prosecuted, or that individual will be found and prosecuted, which, to my knowledge, hasn't happened.
It didn't happen. I think. I'm going from recollection. Was it? Well, I have to look it up. Was it concluded that Samantha Power was the unmasker? I know there was some supposition about Susan Rice, but was it Samantha Power?
It was all supposition.
Yeah.
But that's where the conspiracy comes in, and you need to have your first actor charged to actually deal with the conspiracy, which is what the previous caller was alluding to. And so I don't even think even if we can't prosecute him for perjury, or the government can't prosecute him for perjury directly, I believe the charges need to be filed so that if there is a greater conspiracy or RICO Act that can be demonstrated, proven, or at least flushed out and adjudicated, I think that's the main reason in order to with filing charges for him. I hope that was cogent enough.
Yeah. Thanks for the call. I mean, it's interesting. I was having this conversation with an Orthodox Christian friend of mine. I was a bit surprised, actually, what he said, because he's a minarchist, right? Very small government. He's a man of faith. But he is now, because he sees the left as such a unrepentant, insatiable monster that's swallowing up our freedoms. Like, if we have an opportunity, take it. I mean, that's his position. You make a decision whether or not to bring charges against somebody based on the quality of the case, not based on the target, right? You don't stretch to try to bring charges against someone. Generally speaking, we'd say this: stretch to bring charges against someone. You're not looking for a way to get somebody that you've identified as somebody you want to get. You're saying this person in a position of authority committed these wrong acts, and they rise to the level of criminality under these statutes. And so this is the case, that the evidence that we have to support this case. We believe it passes the standard of reasonable doubt, and that's why we're moving forward. What seems to be an argument that's happening internally on Comey is whether or not, equally situated, competent prosecutors believe that they can pass the reasonable doubt standard. But my point is to talk about my friend. He would say right now, roll the dice, in a way that I don't think he would have said that 5 or certainly 10 years ago. And that's where I think a lot of people are at. I actually think that there's a pretty strong case on the leaking information and lying about having authorized the leak of information, not just McCabe's testimony adverse to interests, but also his buddy, the Columbia professor, and what he said about getting intel from Jim Comey that he wanted to be put in the public domain. I think there's actually a pretty good case that he perjured himself. And he perjured himself not just in September of 2020, but earlier that year in the spring of 2020, where he said the same thing. The statute has run on those comments from the previous committee hearing in which he said the same thing. Now we're up against the statute of limitations on this September 30th testimony. And I think you're going to see the Eastern District of Virginia, U.S. Attorney's Office there, I think you're going to see them indict him. And I will be happy when they do.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Well, hello there. My name is Mitzi. Been married about 27 years, and I wanted to share with you. My husband, a couple of years ago, had a very brutal case of the shingles. And of course, seeing somebody that you really care for suffer is never pleasant. Earlier this year, my husband came down with a second case of shingles. You know, it was beginning to take hold that I had a bottle of Dr. Michael Huber's ViroGo. And so I said to my husband, Bill, I need you to take 2 shots of this. He began to take 2 shots a day. And lo and behold, by about day 3, about 6 doses in, he began to get some relief. I attribute my husband's quick recovery from the shingles to the use of ViroGo.
Order your bottle of ViroGo today online at myvirago.com and use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30% off at checkout. That's myvirago.com, coupon code IMMUNE. Maha and ViroGo, making America healthy again.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at TruePowerGenerator.com. That's TruePowerGenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 6:36, we'll talk about a potential joint U.S.-European solution in Gaza. Leo Leibowitz joins us at 6:36 to discuss what President Trump had to say at the UN with specific attention on the Middle East, which we didn't get to yesterday. That's again at 6:36. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 61 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. City officials in Broadview are demanding the fence around the ICE building be taken down. Broadview Fire Department sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security within hours of that fence going up, informing the agency that the fence was built without a permit and was currently blocking the Broadview Fire Department's access to the road. Department of Homeland Security has yet to respond to the city's demands. Cook County Sheriff's Office has received a grant from the Illinois Department of Transportation that'll help pay for additional countywide patrols, and those will be focused on speeding. Those additional patrols started this morning, and they're going to run through the end of the month. And U.S. News and World Report has released their top 100 colleges list. 4 Illinois institutions made it, including the University of Chicago, which was ranked number 6, and Northwestern, which followed at number 7. The University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign was ranked number 36 on the list, followed by University of Illinois Chicago, which came in at 84. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average and get your smile back. Check if you qualify at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Your home is a valuable asset, and you want to take care of your home. From roofs, siding, windows, and doors to furnaces, flooring, landscaping, and much more. Listen to your go-to for all things home. It's Home Answers Radio every Sunday morning at 9. Presented by Lang Home Medical Equipment, Valdecast Windows and Doors, and by JeffBuysYourHouse.com. Get answers from industry experts so you can make informed decisions about your home improvement. Right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
Does your garage floor look lousy with stained or cracked concrete, or even worse, bad epoxy or paint? Call Comer and Cross Concrete Floors now. During their end-of-the-year sale at 1-800-NEW-FLOOR right now, you'll get the best price of the year guaranteed, starting with $750 off. At Comer and Cross Garage Floor, they are the gold standard, guaranteed to never chip, crack, or show tire lift like epoxy or bad paint. And they'll make it so easy, they're in and out in one day. They'll fix your cracks, the pits, and they fix them perfectly the first time. They're certified, they're uniformed, they're employees. They'll even take the stuff out of your garage for you. Whether you're in Chicago, Milwaukee, or Indiana, now is the time to call them for the best price of the year, guaranteed, starting with $750 off right now during their end-of-the-year garage sale. Here's the number. It's easy. 1-800-NEW-FLOOR. That's 1-800-NEW-FLOOR, or go to COMERcross.com.
People ask us all the time, when's the best time to replace an old air conditioner? Simple. Before it breaks. Because when it does, you know it'll be the hottest day of the year, and suddenly you're scrambling like hundreds of others to get help during a heat wave. At Air Right Heating and Cooling, we've seen it all. We know there's never a good time to be without AC, especially in Chicagoland, where the humidity can make 80 degrees feel like 100. At Air Right, our experienced technicians don't just work fast, they'll do it right. Browse through our more than 1,500 5-star Google reviews to see what our loyal customers love most about us. If it's been a while since your system was inspected, don't wait for a heat wave before having it checked out. And right now, AM 560 listeners receive $56 off any service. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right, doing it right since 1959.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Taking a look at your drive in the Team Hochberg Traffic Center with traffic and service of Blindster.com on the inbound Edens Lake Cook to Montrose, 17 minutes. A 14-minute ride on the Edens outbound Montrose to Lake Cook. On the inbound Kennedy Montrose to the Byrne Interchange, a 15-minute travel time. Kennedy outbound from the Byrne Interchange to Montrose, you're looking at 12 minutes. Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, a 25-minute ride and 16 minutes on the Eisenhower outbound from the Old Post Office to Wolf. On the Stevenson inbound, you're looking at 34 minutes from 355 to Lakeshore Drive. On the outbound Stevenson Lakeshore Drive to 355, 23 minutes. Dan Ryan inbound from 95th to the Byrne Interchange, an 18-minute ride and an 11-minute ride on the Dan Ryan outbound from the Byrne Interchange to 95th. Kyle started Blindster in 2010 to make quality custom-made blinds affordable to everyone. Traditional window covering retailers are expensive. Blindster's prices are low and their blinds are guaranteed to fit. Blindster.com. I'm KT. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. next. Now here's the latest forecast from QC Kinetics.
Today, expect a morning shower in the area, then a mix of clouds and sun with a high of 74. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 56. Tomorrow brings sunny and warm weather with a high reaching 80. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft. Before we move on, just a postscript on our conversation on Comey and the unmasking of General Flynn that was brought up as among the many offenses of the Joe Obama years. The unmasking of Flynn, refreshing my recollection during the break, right? Grinnell, the acting DNI in the summer of 2020, declassified the list of people associated with making the request to unmask Flynn related to his conversation with the Russian ambassador back in the day, which was the predicate for this phony prosecution of Michael Flynn. Talk about lawfare. He's sort of been forgotten in this mix as one of those victims of lawfare, but he certainly was. But DOJ never released the list. Grinnell declassified it, but DOJ, Barr at the time, never released the list and had no plans to, and I don't know that the issue has been revisited. So we have testimony where Susan Rice denies that she made the request for the unmasking, and Samantha Power, U.S. ambassador to the UN under Obama, can't remember if she made a request for the unmasking, and James Clapper denies any knowledge of the unmasking. So that's another document that we need. We need that list that Grinnell declassified, but Barr never disclosed to the public. Okay. Moving on. So we talked extensively about Trump's comments before the UN General Assembly yesterday, and they were quite pointed. We talked about Ukraine, we talked about Malay, but we didn't get to the Middle East. And the statement that EU President Ursula von der Leyen made last week about Europe putting together the funding to rebuild Gaza and forge a two-state solution, whatever that's supposed to look like. But this is what the EU boss had to say. Do we have her? Oh, there we go.
When the night is darkest, we must hold fast to our compass. And our compass is the two-state solution. Since the beginning of this war, Europe has been the lifeline of the Palestinian Authority. But we must all do more. And this is why we will set up a Palestine donor group. We Europeans will set up a dedicated instrument for Gaza's reconstruction. The only realistic peace plan is based on two states, with a secure Israel, a viable Palestinian state, and the scourge of Hamas removed.
For reaction to that and what Trump had to say and comments on that proposal yesterday, please be joined again by Leo Leibovitz, editor-at-large for Tablet and host of the Rootless podcast. Leo, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Pleasure as always.
So what about that EU leadership, allegedly?
Yeah, thanks for playing this clip. I was half expecting Ursula to start singing Poor Unfortunate Souls like Ursula from The Little Mermaid, because this is like straight up villain, Disney villain territory. Here's what this woman is saying. This woman is basically saying, hey, remember the 4 or 5 or 6 other times when we in Europe gave Hamas and the Palestinians billions and billions and billions of dollars, and then they took the money and they built terror tunnels and they used literally every last dime of it to plot and murder Jews and Americans and other civilians? Yeah, let's do that again. Now, if you think that's a good idea, hey, welcome to Europe, circa 2025.
Well, I mean, you're not the only one who thinks that. I mean, the Wall Street Journal's op-ed, the title of it, "A Palestinian State for Hamas." So, I didn't really even need to read much further. I get the gist of the argument that they're making. They're making the same argument that you're making. And President Trump not impressed by that argument.
President Trump is, I keep watching his speech at the UN on repeat because it is a source of great comfort to know that whatever else is going on in this crazy world, there is one adult, there is one serious human adult who understands, that actions have consequences. I think President Trump understands a few things. First of all, I think he understands there is no real difference between Hamas and the quote-unquote Palestinians. The Palestinian Authority is just Hamas with a slightly nicer beard. These are people who used every dime that they got to fund their gruesome, grisly pay-for-slay program, in which I'm sure most of your listeners know about this, but in which if you kill a Jew, you get a lifetime stipend, you and your family, from the government. That is the main source of expenditure of this despotic government that has been in power without election for more than a decade now. So I think President Trump understands that Palestinians equal terrorism. Second of all, that a state would be rewarding this terrorism. And third of all, that, succumbing to these delusions that the Europeans and the international left have held on to for way too long is about the most disastrous way for America to proceed.
Well, I mean, just on that, the Palestinians equal terrorism. I mean, so are you saying that you don't believe there's a scenario in which Palestinians returning to Gaza and some sort of governance structure provides even the possibility of Palestinians in Gaza and Jews living in peace?
Look, Dan, I'm a religious man, so by definition, I believe in miracles. God is great. Anything could happen. But I'm also a student of history, and here's what history has shown us. In 1947, the UN came about and said, hey, Palestinians, we think it's a good idea for you to have a state and live side by side with Israel. They said no and launched an all-out war against the Jews. In 1993, Israel said, you know what? Okay, let's end all this fighting. Here, we would like to invest in a Palestinian state. They said no and launched an all-out war against the Jews. At some point, you think that while maybe in some distant utopian future, hopefully, God willing, we will have some kind of reconciliation. But right now, the most important thing, for that to happen, if you truly believe in Jews and Palestinians living side by side with each other, the main thing that you need to do is precisely what President Trump has done at the UN, which is to say, guys, the path of terror will not be rewarded. If you truly want peace, you're going to have to show that you are ready, that you're able, and that you're serious about this, which historically these people have not.
Yeah, the history piece is certainly missing. It's unsurprising because, there's just so many in the West that have no understanding of world history, even their own country's history. Walter Russell Mead had a good piece on the topic too. Though he writes, the Western leaders who flaunt their self-perceived moral purity as they condemn Israel forget the foundations on which they stand. The Allies, talking about World War II, like the Israelis, weren't the aggressors in that war, but in their efforts to extirpate the scourges of Nazi nihilism and Japanese militarism, they killed as many as 3 million German and another 1 million Japanese civilians. They created mass homelessness, destroyed some of the world's greatest cultural and religious monuments, disrupted medical and educational services, and subjected millions to ethnic cleansing on an unprecedented scale. FDR, Churchill, and Clement Attlee, British Labour leader at the time, scoffed at suggestions that the Allies provide humanitarian aid to enemy civilians while the war continued. As the British Foreign Office reminded Lord Lothian, its ambassador to the U.S., supplies admitted to the occupied territories either fall into enemy hands or release other supplies for the enemy. That's, vaunted liberal icon Franklin Delano Roosevelt included in that description of what went on in World War II for us to be victorious over those scourges, as Walter Russell Mead describes them. It's an ugly business to deal with people that are scourges.
I think it's sadly very much so, which is why history has proven, and World War II is a great case in point, there's really no other way to deal with this except for to wage a swift and victorious war until you have those Nazis. And make no mistake, Hamas of today are not very different in ideology and in yearnings than the Nazis of the 30s and the 40s. Until you are completely victorious, until you completely eradicate this threat, not only to Israel, it's really important to note, but to America and to the entirety of Western civilization, there will really be no peace, not just in Israel and Palestine, but throughout the world.
The proposal that Trump made, the president planning to meet with Middle East leaders again of Muslim states, Saudis, UAE, Qatar, Egypt. The plan, Israel withdrawal, Arab peacekeeping forces replace IDF, no Hamas in governance, Arab funding for rebuilding. The report associated with this proposal, Indonesia has committed troops already. One U.S. official saying, we have a pretty good idea of the contours of ending the war. We want regional buy-in. In terms of what you've heard about what the Trump administration is proposing in broad outlines, do you think this is feasible and judicious?
I want to answer this question on three different levels because it's such a complicated situation. The most important thing perhaps to be said is that the Trump administration and the president in particular are 100% committed to Israel's safety and security and to peace in the region, which is a very important and kind of heartening fact that simply wasn't the case of the previous administration. Now we look at the contours of the actual deal. Look, on one level, there could be no doubt that ideas like international peacekeepers are patently ridiculous. We've had that in Lebanon for decades, and all these international peacekeepers did was sit around and sort of, watch as Hezbollah got mightier and deadlier until Israel had to step in and deal with them. Again, Hamas has to be defeated. On the other hand, look, you can't really come out forcefully against this plan because sadly, there are still at least 40 Israeli hostages living in the most unthinkable conditions, suffering untold suffering, not allowed in complete defiance of international law to meet with the International Red Cross. Every Jew, every person in Israel, every person with a conscience says, hey, first and foremost, do whatever you need to do to free these people. So I think the tension between the goal of wanting to eradicate Hamas on the one hand and wanting to free the hostages on another is one that President Trump feels, very acutely. And I think it's not the worst idea to do something first and foremost to let these people go and be free and rejoin their families and let the dead come to a proper burial in Israel, and then figure out how you could continue from there. Not my favorite solution, but hey, totally understandable.
Well, and it's it's operating against this backdrop with the Brits, the Canadians, the Aussies, and some 150 other countries recognizing a Palestinian state, whatever that means.
Right. I, by the way, am declaring here in your show that I recognize Narnia and Middle Earth both as viable states.
Okay.
Look, when you look at Europe, really, it honestly just merits a chuckle. You look at Great Britain, a country where the police will come and knock on your door if you post something on social media that the government doesn't like. You look at Australia, a country where synagogues are burning every other Thursday, and Muslim doctors are going on social media saying, we can't wait to have a Jewish patient so we could poison him. You look at Canada, that replaced something like 32% of its population in the last 20 years. These are not countries, and President Trump made that point very clearly and I think very courageously in his UN speech. These are not countries that are going to survive for long in their current form if they continue this mad descent, this surrender into an enemy nation that is taking them over and subsuming all of their values and all of their traditions. I think most people in Great Britain understand that, which is why you have a state of deep unrest. I think some Canadians understand that. I think some Australians understand that. But in order for the West to survive in this, again, make no mistake, Israel, as always, is just a canary in the coal mine. End goal is not Israel. The main goal is us. It's the United States. Unless we understand that and get serious about these problems, it's not going to end well for these countries.
Well, and that was really the overriding point that Trump made in his larger address to the UN yesterday, talking about what Europe is doing to itself. Being generous and saying, in the interest of being nice, you're basically destroying your countries, and really, essentially, issuing a cri de coeur for Western civilization.
I think that is the most urgent. That is priority 1 to 100 of our time. Because if we don't sort of wake up and understand, A, that we have values, B, that our values are not compatible with any other values. They are very specific and particular. If someone came to you and said, hey, man, I'm a communist, I actually don't believe, in the free market and personal property, you can't say, oh, welcome to the great, gorgeous mosaic that is America. You say, no, I'm sorry, your values are incompatible with ours. Unless we recognize this and unless we start getting serious, A, about fighting people who actively want to undermine our values, and B, start getting serious about building and commemorating and sort of injecting more and more life force and energy into our values and institutions that are meant to preserve and build them up, we're not going to do very well.
Liel Leibovitz is editor-at-large for Tablet and the host of the Rootless podcast. Liel, thanks as always. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
And Liel Leibovitz joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft. If that happens, LifeLock gives you the U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims. Your agent handles it all. In fact, they're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. It's nice to have an expert like that on your side. Save up to 40% off your first year with promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
You ever wonder why Verizon charges twice as much as Pure Talk for the same basic service? Think it might have something to do with the fact that Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion. That's billion with a B. Yeah, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. That's why they can offer unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Save an additional 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say the words micro. That's pound 250. Micro.
You've heard me talk about Northridge Prep for years, but now I want you to hear from one of their recent graduates, TJ Gorman. He just graduated second in his class in Marine Corps basic training. This is what he said about Northridge. I was blessed to attend Northridge, not only for the education, but for the values and principles my mentors instilled within me. The school taught us what it meant to be a leader and lead through example, hard work, humility, and empathy. I thank God for Northridge. That's what makes Northridge Prep great for young men. The students are called to excellence to become true leaders. And these boys want to go to school each day. They love Northridge because they can be free to learn, to grow, and to be challenged. There's a real spirit of adventure on campus that you've just got to experience for yourself to appreciate. For nearly 50 years, Northridge has partnered with parents like no other school in the Chicagoland area. Today in our nation, we need more Northridge graduates to lead the way as men of intellect and character who love God. Guys like TJ Gorman, men who put their values first. Northridge is having an open house on Sunday, October 19th at 1 p.m. Sunday, October 19th, 1 p.m. for boys in grades 6 through 12. You can register for that open house at northridgeprep.org. Again, the open house for Northridge is on Sunday, October 19th at 1 p.m. and register online at northridgeprep.org.
Fellow patriots, our neighbors in Manteno are under attack. Governor Pritzker handed over $536 million of your tax dollars to Goshen, a company affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party and under congressional investigation. Now Goshen wants to use toxic chemicals near family homes. But the concerned citizens of Manteno are fighting back in court, and they need our help. Join us Tuesday, October 28th at Olympia Fields Country Club for an evening with Gordon Chang, a leading expert on China's threats to America. Cocktails at 6, dinner at 7. Every dollar raised goes directly to their legal battle against the CCP-affiliated Goshen. Get your tickets now at breakthrough-ideas.com. Learn more at our Dump Goshen webpage. This is our fight, Illinois. American taxpayers shouldn't fund Communist China's expansion onto American soil. Get involved today. Breakthrough Ideas and the Coalition for a Prosperous America are sponsoring this event and standing with concerned citizens everywhere.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 7:07, we'll get perspective on the shooting at that Dallas ICE facility and leftist violence in general, including specifically down there, since that's a facility that was targeted before, as we know and have discussed. Josh Sherrard is a former Galveston, Texas police captain and SWAT commander. He joins us at 7:07. It is now 7 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Federal investigators have gone to homes in Texas and Oklahoma. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, looking into the gunman who fired at an immigration enforcement facility in Dallas, killing one detainee, critically wounding two others before killing himself.
The shooter has been identified as 29-year-old Joshua John. Officials say that he fired dozens of rounds at the ICE facility from the rooftop of a nearby building. Anti-ICE messages were found on rounds that were right near him.
Fox's Brooke Taylor in Dallas. The FBI calls it a targeted attack, and Vice President Vance points a finger at the left after all the anti-ICE protests.
If your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell, and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
And in that speech in North Carolina, Vance called out Gavin Newsom by name, California's governor. Well, the Democrat replied with a post on X that he won't be going to hell. But when listening to Vance, Newsom wrote he feels like he's already there. A meeting at the White House could get contentious later this morning. Fox's Peter Ducey's there.
This is going to be something that does not happen often. A world leader is coming here to visit President Trump at the White House, fresh off calling him out and accusing the president of talking too big a game when it comes to ending global conflicts.
That's Turkey's President Erdogan, who could be pressed to stop buying Russian oil, something President Trump called out NATO allies like Turkey for continuing to do, which he says keeps funding the Ukraine war. Now, the president canceled a meeting that would have been today with Democratic congressional leaders as a government shutdown looms unless lawmakers approve new funding by Tuesday.
The White House's Office of Management and Budget sent out a memo saying agencies need to have ready reduction in force plans. Agencies were told to identify programs that'll lose funding October 1st. Workers wouldn't just be furloughed for however long a shutdown may last. They'd be gone permanently.
That's Jill Nato. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 60 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. We'll see mostly sunny skies today, highs topping out around 71 degrees. Illinois gubernatorial candidate Ted Dabrowski says repealing the Trust Act to end the state's sanctuary status is his top legislative priority. Dabrowski held a press conference Wednesday outside the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Broadview, where he called out Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, saying that the pair have, quote, fanned the flames of extremists. A 49-year-old Waukegan woman has turned herself into authorities following a hit and run this past weekend. Authorities say Rosalinda Vacay told police that she knew that she'd hit something with her vehicle Sunday night, but she didn't realize she'd hit and killed a person. The victim has been identified as 36-year-old Michelle Heidbrich. Heidbrich was reportedly 22 weeks pregnant. Medical personnel were unable to save her or her unborn child. A 39-year-old woman was arrested on Monday after witnesses say she broke into a private hangar at Midway International Airport, stole a shuttle bus, and then drove it out onto the taxiway. The woman reportedly told police that she was testing security at the facility. And they may not have won the $1 million grand prize, but the Leo High School Boys Choir won America's Hearts. The Southside High School Choir placed fourth on America's Got Talent finale last night. And if you missed it, here's what it sounded like. Congratulations to these amazing young men. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have a Blue Cross, Blue Shield, PPO, or FEP, you can save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Learn more and check if you qualify at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560, The Answer.
If you listen to the mainstream media and the Democrats, you'd think it was a sin to be black and conservative. Well, John Anthony blows up that perception every week on Black and Right. Join John this Saturday afternoon at 4 when he pushes back against the left and its regressive, progressive agenda that tries to dictate how people should think or feel about politics. Listen to Black and Right this Saturday afternoon at 4 right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for. For this free information, call 800-422-1609. 800-422-1609. 800-422-1609. Or simply visit GoDRA.com.
You ever wonder why Verizon charges twice as much as Pure Talk for the same basic service? Think it might have something to do with the fact that Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion. That's billion with a B. Yeah, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. That's why they can offer unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Save an additional 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say the words Micro. That's pound 250, Micro.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft. If that happens, LifeLock gives you the U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims. Your agent handles it all. In fact, they're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. It's nice to have an expert like that on your side. Save up to 40% off your first year with promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Does your garage floor look lousy with stained or cracked concrete, or even worse, bad epoxy or paint? Call Comer and Cross Concrete Floors now. During their end-of-the-year sale at 1-800-NEW-FLOOR right now, you'll get the best price of the year guaranteed, starting with $750 off. At Comer and Cross Garage Floor, they are the gold standard, guaranteed to never chip, crack, or show tire lift like epoxy or bad paint. And they'll make it so easy, they're in and out in one day. They'll fix your cracks, the pits, and they fix them perfectly the first time. They're certified, they're uniformed, they're employees. They'll even take the stuff out of your garage for you. Whether you're in Chicago, Milwaukee, or Indiana, now is the time to call them for the best price of the year, guaranteed, starting with $750 off right now during their end-of-the-year garage sale. Here's the number. It's easy. 1-800-NEW-FLOOR. That's 1-800-NEW-FLOOR, or go to COMERcross.com.
We're watching two trouble spots this morning on the Stevenson inbound between LaGrange Road before Des Plaines River Bridge. Expect to layer in about a 10-minute delay on the inbound Stevenson block at LaGrange due to an accident involving a motorcycle there. Also an accident on the Indiana Toll Road. That's eastbound 90 between Calumet and Klein Avenue, the Gary Airport exit. Traffic on the Edens is flowing this morning inbound between Wilson and Montrose, about a 5-minute delay. The Kennedy's looking good. Some minor issues inbound between Harlem and Montrose, about a 10-minute delay in that area as well. If you're rolling on the Ike, watch for an accident blocking the right lane outbound at Sacramento Boulevard. Brake lights coming alive on the Ike inbound between Wolf Road and Oak Park, about a 10-minute delay there. And traffic building on the Bishop Ford inbound between 115th and Dan Ryan. Traffic is a service of Air Right Heating and Cooling, offering AM 560 listeners $56 off any service, including inspections. Don't wait for a heat wave for that old AC to break down. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check at the forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today, expect a morning shower in the area, then a mix of clouds and sun with a high of 74. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 56. Tomorrow brings sunny and warm weather with a high reaching 80. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft. Marcos Charles, we talked to him last week, acting Executive Associate Director of Enforcement and Removal Operations for ICE, said Operation Midway Blitz here in Chicago has resulted in 550 arrests as of Thursday of last week. 50 to 60% of the arrests were targeted arrests in which ICE had been searching for that specific person that was arrested. The other arrests were collateral arrests where ICE came upon the people during their operations, but were not specifically searching for them already. We're going to be conducting this operation until we feel that we've been successful. There's not an end date in sight, he said, as he told us the same. Oh, by the way, the 50, 60% of the arrests, and then the other arrests are those that were targeted versus the others that they came upon during their operations. Those operations that are happening at the neighborhood community level are happening as a direct result of the status of Illinois as a sanctuary state. You won't cooperate with ICE to handle their business in county jails, in courthouses, so they have to go into neighborhoods to find the people that are on their list. And then they come upon others because, of course, Illinois is a sanctuary state. And so we have imported hundreds of thousands of people just over the last 4 years to Illinois with the help of Greg Abbott, but welcomed because we're a welcoming city and state, don't you know? And so, again, the consequences of the policies that the political establishment in this state has advanced, now they decry. They don't like consequences for their actions. Well, we know this. And for their good work, talking about ICE here, operating out of their facility in Broadview, we get this. Broadview officials demand the Department of Homeland Security take down fence surrounding ICE facility. They put up a fence around their facility because they have protesters out there committing crimes. And I'm not talking about their profane language. I'm talking about blocking the entrance and exit of federal law enforcement officials. I'm talking about vandalizing government property, pounding on ICE vehicles. I'm talking about getting up into the face of ICE officers and assaulting them. Some had to be taken down, in terms of into custody. And then otherwise you saw tear gas deployed and so forth. So these are not peaceful protests. And yet the local community here, Broadview, the mayor, Katina Thompson, framed the presence of the ICE facility as a very scary time. Right. That's what's scary to politicians here and in so many other locales, and certainly leftist politicians across the country. ICE is scary. The people that prey on other people, including other migrants who are otherwise peaceful, not scary. This Guatemalan in Seattle, he's not the problem. ICE in Seattle is the problem, right?
A 29-year-old man who ICE officials say was living in the country illegally is accused in a gruesome crime. He's charged with killing his girlfriend and her friend in their home in Burien. ICE has now filed a criminal detainer with King County.
The suspect is Marvin Ortiz Montesinos, who is behind bars. He also has a wife and kids back in Guatemala. As of today, Ortiz Montesinos is being held on a $10 million bail Fox 13's AJ Janival shows us how family members of one of the victims are hoping the community can help with their funeral plans.
Investigators report after Victoria Aparicio Cruz broke up with 29-year-old Marvin Ortiz Montesinos, he went and brutally murdered her inside of their shared home, stabbing her more than 20 times, then killing her friend and their roommate, Janeth Gomez Hernandez, a mother of a 10-year-old boy. Investigators said Ortiz Montesinos stabbed her more than 40 times.
Here locally, 13-year-old girl reported missing in New York was found in a Chicago suburb, according to U.S. Marshals. Girl reported missing in Rochester, New York, was found in an apartment complex in Blue Island with an 18-year-old man and his father. ICE said both of those men were in the country illegally. There was another minor girl in the apartment. I don't know all the specifics whether she was reported missing, but we know she wasn't related to the family. And this is another part of the operation that goes under discuss, which is all those unaccompanied minors that disappeared into the country that now ICE and U.S. Marshals and HHS are trying to identify, recover, and ensure that at minimum they are not with a sponsor who is a predator. The numbers last week, 400 arrests made of so-called sponsors who were fraudulent sponsors, and 27 of the tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors that the Trump administration is trying to track down, dead. For more on this, particularly in light of what happened in Dallas last night and what Ted Cruz, among others, had to say about it.
This is the third shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop. To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, stop. To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their families, stop. This has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree. That's fine. That's the democratic process. But your political opponents are not Nazis.
Josh Sherrard is the Director of Law Enforcement and Private Security at Byrna Technologies. He's a former Galveston, Texas police captain and SWAT commander. Joins us now. Josh, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Dan, thanks for having me.
What's your reaction to, what happened yesterday, of course, combined with what you've heard from Ted Cruz and the vice president and others about the demonization of federal law enforcement officers?
You know, we've been seeing, kind of this trend over the last several years, really over the last 5 to 10 years with law enforcement, where it's been more socially acceptable to demonize those officers and to really just, take a furtive action against the law enforcement officers throughout the country. And now here in the last year, especially in the last 6 months, now we're starting to see not only the social acceptance of protests and just outright, just hatred against law enforcement officers, but the attack on law enforcement officers. And unfortunately, this rhetoric is being driven by several organizations out there that are, all but condoning these actions now. And now that we're seeing it escalate over the last several months, and we're seeing very similar kind of modus operandi, a very similar MO in a lot of these attacks, it begs the question of where is a lot of this coming from as far as, kind of this playbook of how to attack law enforcement. And is it coming from, very centralized places that we can track back to? And, we have to ask the question of how do we start to get to the root of where a lot of this more focused narrative is coming from, rather than just this vague, condoning of standing up and attacking law enforcement. Is there a more centralized voice that's directing these actions?
Yeah, I mean, of course, what we know about the shooter who took himself out after he murdered a detainee, ostensibly accidentally. Ostensibly, he was targeting law enforcement per, the anti-ICE scrawled on bullet casings that was recovered. Injured 2 others, no law enforcement. But we know that again, there's some indicia. It doesn't mean this is the source, but He had a gaming profile which indicated some leftist beliefs. J.D. Vance said yesterday there's information or evidence that we have that has not been made public yet that indicates more leftist beliefs. His mom is a leftist. His sister is a leftist. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you have a lot of different avenues you can travel, and you don't know, though, if it really can you can generate a profile that you can then sort of apply in other circumstances as some sort of assessment of a particular person or even a particular organization. I mean, that's the complication, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But when we start to, we look at the Charlie Kirk assassination, and I think we're seeing a lot of ties from that, a lot of, kind of callbacks to that, and even back, obviously to the Luigi Mangione shooting as well with this. But we start to dig into, like you said, these gaming profiles, these boards, these forums, these Discord servers, and we start to see how big this network spreads. And then you have to start asking the question, is this just a network of supporters, of people that, are condoning this kind of action, or are we looking at, people that are supplying, materialistic support and assistance to committing some of these actual crimes? And that's where we really start to say, hey, what kind of criminal action can be taken against some of these other people that may not have pulled the trigger, literally, but helped pull the trigger proverbially by providing, some of this support.
Well, I mean, one example, too. I mean, we talked about this with respect to anti-Semitism and violence against Jews in this country. College campuses. I don't know if you saw this. There was a flyer that was identified on the campus of Georgetown University that led with this: "Hey, fascist, catch, the only political group that celebrates when Nazis die." And it was for the John Brown Club at Georgetown University. "Hey, fascist, catch" was, of course, the message scrawled on the bullet that killed Charlie Kirk. And the only political group that celebrates when Nazis die. So this is sort of like, Antifa-esque. They say they're anti-fascist, they're fascist. These John Brown gun clubs. John Brown was an abolitionist, and these people are oppressors, clearly. So, the ironies abound, but that's not the point. The point is, is there something behind these John Brown clubs or other clubs, which is, to your point, like we saw with Students for Justice in Palestine, or we see for Students for Justice in Palestine at college campuses, where there's like real funding behind them, and there's a purposeful deployment of these organizations on college campuses to spread the effort to build the infrastructure.
When we look at the ability to persuade young adults in a very, very quick manner, it seems that these organizations, college-based organizations, are being very successful at doing that. I mean, we look at the Charlie Kirk shooter, and who seemingly came from a very good home with good values, good morals, good virtues. His parents were public servants. We would assume that he had a fairly decent upbringing, but then in a very short period of time after leaving home, he is influenced to the degree that he is an extremist, to the degree where he's actually going out and killing somebody. So that's where we have to look, is who is able to have that much power and wield that much influence over somebody's life. And it looks like that these college organizations that are impacting these kids in a very influential time in their life are able to just absolutely radicalize their ideals and their belief system enough to actually go out and kill people. And it's interesting, these John Brown clubs, as an abolitionist, John Brown seemed to be fighting the good fight, but he was also one of the first people back in the Civil War to use very violent guerrilla tactics.
Yeah, Harper's Ferry.
Exactly, in order to achieve his overall mission. So it's that and we're seeing that same kind of ideological justification for the very similar violent guerrilla tactics to achieve a mission.
Yeah, I mean, these know-nothings at Georgetown and elsewhere they may want to read the rest of the story to understand that John Brown was executed for treason. So it didn't, his use of violence to achieve political ends didn't go very well for him, and it won't go very well for them either. But it is sort of it seems like this is almost sort of a madness of crowds thing. It's presented as one-off radicalizations, but when you get into, they're part of these gaming communities, these other sort of affective communities, the furry thing with the Charlie Kirk assassination. It actually is, they are part of self-reinforcing echo chambers. They're not alone, in point of fact.
Correct. Absolutely. And this is where, and look, this type of radicalization, this type of influence goes back, decades and decades and centuries where, you put someone who seems marginalized into a group where they can find, common
identity,
commonalities exactly between people. And now they feel like they're part of a group. Now, where the direction that group goes, they're willing to go with it because of the fact that they finally feel like they're not being marginalized as an individual and that they are part of a larger culture. So, and that's where these radical groups, these extremists understand that they can kind of convert somebody that seems, fairly moderate into something much more extreme and much more radical.
In your time as a police officer, police captain in Galveston, did you have the occasion to work with ICE?
All the time. Absolutely. I mean, Galveston is actually not as far from, for your northerners, not as far from the Texas border as some might think. So, and right there close to Houston, which Houston's one of the largest kind of, illegal immigration kind of jumping off points. So if they can get them to Houston, then it's very easy to get throughout the United States. So we were dealing a lot with working with the Department of Homeland Security, working with ICE and CBP in order to assist them and them assist us when we would have immigration issues as well, which we did a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, since we're here in Illinois in a sanctuary state where local police are not allowed to work constructively with federal immigration enforcement. How important was that from your perspective, going in both directions in terms of assisting you with your domestic policing responsibilities and assisting them from their perspective with, their charge as federal law enforcement? I mean, was it, the working together, was it a real force multiplier with respect to both of the different police agencies doing their jobs?
I can tell you that not with just immigration, and especially now, but not with just immigration, that the ability for law enforcement entities throughout the country to be able to work together, share information, share resources, share assets is the only thing that keeps us safe at the end of the night. There is no way for a police department on its own, or a law enforcement agency, or a federal law enforcement agency on its own to secure this country, to secure a state, to secure a community, carte blanche. It's just not going to happen. You have to be able to share that information. You have to be able to rely on each other's powers and resources in order to get things done, in order to secure that community. And immigration is no different. There's no way that a police department can keep a city safe, that a municipal police department can keep a city safe if it doesn't have the ability to bring in some of these federal assets to say, hey, look, I need, I have this continual issue here. I can only do so much as a municipal police department, as a state prosecutory agency. What other options do we have to remove this problem? And then vice versa. It goes both ways. So there's no way that siloing these law enforcement organizations is going to keep these communities safe. It's the ability to share that information, share those resources, work together, and make this network of law enforcement. That's what keeps the community safe and the state safe, the country safe, and so on and so forth.
Josh Sherrard is Director of Law Enforcement and Private Security at Byrna Technologies, former Galveston, Texas police captain and SWAT commander. Josh, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And Josh joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Sean Thompson here, and I'm with attorney Bert Hochberg from the law firm of Schiller, Ducanto, and Fleck. We're talking about divorce arbitration. This is not really a new, or is it a new, innovative way to go through divorce?
Arbitration has been around for decades. It's completely legit and available to resolve divorce cases. The litigants and their lawyers sign an arbitration agreement. They identify what the issues are, and we set up dates, and we determine what experts and witnesses there may be. Arbitration is a hearing, a trial that is intended to finish a case efficiently with limited appeal, with a binding decision, and it's confidential, so it has some great characteristics.
I think it's a unique alternative to divorce. For more information, please visit sdflaw.com and type Bert Hochberg into the search box. That's sdflaw.com or call direct 773-255-6150.
Don't get stuck with a cold shower this fall. Give CenterGuard Plumbing a call. Get a new 40-gallon water heater installed for just $1,195 for standard installation, or a 50-gallon heater for $1,295 standard installation. A proud new sponsor of AM 560, CenterGuard is offering specials on new water heaters. Don't wait. The cold temperatures are coming, and the same can happen to your water heater. If you're having hot water issues or your water heater's over 8 years old, take advantage of this fall special today. CenterGuard Plumbing is Chicagoland's same-day water heater experts. Call before noon, and they can schedule your repair or install the same day on in-stock water heaters. They'll even haul away your old one, no charge. You're only a text away from install today. Call 847-406-8883. Mention AM 560 to receive fall special pricing. That's 847-406-8883. Call or text 847-406-8883 or visit CenterGuardPlumbing.com.
Hello, my name is Dr. Michael Huber. I'm one of the co-founders and developers of Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail. Laboratory studies have shown that certain nutraceuticals not only protect the heart, the kidney, and the brain, but also enhance their function. These nutraceuticals are found in Virago. Here's what a Virago user has to say.
Hi, my name is Dan, a retired Navy SEAL, and I have CHF, chronic heart failure, bad circulation, and many other problems with my health. And my VA doctor told me about a product called Virago, and I started taking it, and I was able to get out of the wheelchair. My legs are not swollen anymore. My feet aren't swelling anymore, and it's just really made a lot of difference, and I thank God for it. And I attribute my recovery to using Virago regularly.
Order online at myvirago.com and use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. Maha and Virago, making America healthy again.
You ever wonder why Verizon charges twice as much as Pure Talk for the same basic service? Think it might have something to do with the fact that Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion. That's billion with a B. Yeah, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. That's why they can offer unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Save an additional 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say the words micro. That's pound 250, micro.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft. If that happens, LifeLock gives you the U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims. Your agent handles it all. In fact, they're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. It's nice to have an expert like that on your side. Save up to 40% off your first year with promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 7:37, Chicago radio legend Kevin Matthews, Jim Shorts, both will join us at 7:37. His book that has been optioned into a movie, Broken Mary, A Journey of Hope, releases nationwide on October 7th, so you want to get out and support Kevin Matthews and see that film. It's one night only, Tuesday, October 7th. We'll talk about this all with Kevin Matthews, and maybe Jim Shorts makes an appearance as well. 7:37, now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 60 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Mostly sunny and 71 today. Hunters are reminded about location where deers can be tested for chronic wasting disease, or CWD. Free of charge services offered through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources and allows hunter-harvested deer to be tracked for wildlife biologists to be able to monitor the distribution of CWD throughout the state. More information can be found on the Hunt Illinois app. A 39-year-old woman was arrested on Monday after witnesses say she broke into a private aviation hangar at Midway International Airport. She stole a shuttle bus and then drove it out on the taxiway. The woman reportedly told police that she was testing security at the facility. And finally, they didn't win the $1 million grand prize, but the Leo High School Boys Choir won America's hearts. Southside High School Choir placed fourth on the America's Got Talent finale last night. Nonetheless, congratulations to the Leo High School Boys Choir. They represented us so well. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have a Blue Cross, Blue Shield, PPO, or FEP, you could save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Learn more and check if you qualify at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Your home is a valuable asset, and you want to take care of your home. From roofs, siding, windows, and doors to furnaces, flooring, landscaping, and much more. Listen to your go-to for all things home. It's Home Answers Radio every Sunday morning at 9. Presented by Lang Home Medical Equipment, Valdecast Windows and Doors, and by JeffBuysYourHouse.com. Get answers from industry experts so you can make informed decisions about your home improvement. Right here on AM 560, The Answer.
If you need custom boxes and crates, expert packing and crating, import-export transloading with heavy lift capability, the DC Group delivers. It all started 51 years ago with DC Export and Domestic Packing, the hard work of founders Dominic and Carol Cochemiglio. Their family's desire to exceed customer expectations, backed by an incredible team and loyal customers, is now driving expansion. From their humble roots in a garage-sized building to 100,000 square feet in the Chicago area, 45,000 in Greenville, and a new Houston facility, they're coast to coast, and their sister company, DC Transport, handles everything from container drayage to super heavy haul loads across North America since 1991. Whether it's packing and crating, transloading, transportation service, or trade shows, the DC Group delivers. Those that attended FabTech 2025, we'd love to hear from you. Get your quote now at dcexport.com. That's dcexport.com, your trusted logistics partner.
Let's see, if something costs less, a lot less, but people are actually happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's Medi-Share. Maybe you've heard joining Medi-Share can save you or your family up to $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true. People are just happier with it. They love being part of something that reflects and promotes their values and what they believe in. Medi-Share works, too. It's been around for 30 years now, and members have shared more than $7 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network, so yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care, whether you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan that you're happy with. Here you go. You can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. It's 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE. 833-34-BIBLE.
They took everything. Our equipment, our supplies, it's all gone.
It's devastating. Every order is going to be delayed for months, and our customers are going to find someone else.
I don't know if we'll ever recover from this. We're already getting calls from clients checking on their orders.
Who knows how long it will take to get back on our feet? What were we thinking not upgrading our security?
Don't let a break-in devastate your business. Protect yourself with Goldilocks. They'll create a customized security solution for you. From commercial doors with keyless entry to 24/7 alarm monitoring, they have you covered. Learn more at GoldilocksInc.com and have a security technician conduct an on-site assessment of your business. Plus, AM 560 listeners get their first 3 months of monitoring free with a new install. Call Goldilocks now. 708-889-5600. That's 708-889-5600. Goldilocks, Chicagoland's premier locksmith doors and security systems company since 1981.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Traffic building in all directions inbound this morning. Let's get you into work and school. Solid traffic still in the Indiana Toll Road that's eastbound between Klein Avenue and Columbia Avenue. An accident blocking the left lane involving a semi. No westbound lanes are affected this time, so watch there. Stop and go on the Bishop Ford if you're inbound between 111th and Dan Ryan. The Eden's cooking up some slow traffic inbound between Foster and Montrose, about a 5-minute delay there. It'll take you 50 minutes if you're inbound O'Hare to the Byrne interchange on the Kennedy. Checking the Ike, we're seeing taillights inbound between Manheim and Western Avenue, 20-minute delay. How about the Stevenson? Still watching the accident, blocking that left shoulder, cleaning it up though on the inbound between Route 83 and LaGrange Road. Looking good on the Dan Ryan outbound from the Byrne interchange to 95th, about a 12-minute trip there. This report sponsored by Discover. Guess what? Discover's accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/credit card. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now check out that forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today, expect a morning shower in the area with clouds and sun later. The high will reach 74. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 56. Tomorrow brings sunny and warm weather with a high of 80. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Prompt here. All right, listen up, Kev heads. The day has arrived. Well, almost. Tuesday, October 7th, it will have arrived. Broken Mary Film, brokenmaryfilm.com. Broken Mary, A Journey of Hope. That is the work product of one Kevin Matthews, Chicago radio legend. Of course, you know Kevin Matthews. We've spoken to him a couple of times now over the years about this project ever since he happened upon this Broken Mary statue outside a flower shop, driving to pick up something for his wife, or to pick up something. I think his wife called him to buy flowers, or he heard a call to buy his wife flowers, so that's when he saw it. I don't know. I'm probably conflating some of the details. He can tell the story. He's familiar with the airwaves. He'll do a better job. But October 7th, one night only, the film Broken Mary, A Journey of Hope will appear across the nation. I think 1,000 theaters. And so to support the film, you want to mark Tuesday, October 7th on your calendar and check your local listings to make sure you get out and see Kevin Matthews' work product over the last several years. Really an interesting journey that he's been on, in part a conversion story. Kevin Matthews, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. You have been there from, it's been a long time, and I think you really watched this grow. And, Dan, and good morning, Chicago. I miss you and I love you. And so good to hear even traffic as you're on hold. Chicago is such a dear place. It's my second home. And, Dan, honestly, if you would have told me and asked me 10 years ago, hey, do you believe you'd be, carrying a statue of the Virgin Mary on a dolly around, the country, I'd say you're high, and here we are. And I owe this, honestly, this is all God. It's literally all God. You said that day when I found this statue at a flower shop, and I was...
and this is like 15 years ago, right?
This was in 2011.
Okay.
I had everything had come to a crash in my life. I mean, I left Chicago radio because the business was changing. I was diagnosed with, they thought a brain tumor at first, but it was a rare form of MS. And I lost my job. I have no idea what I'm going to do. And literally, I hear a voice. And Dan, I've been with so many priests now in the last decade. That voice is the Holy Spirit. And it said, buy your wife some flowers. There's no such thing as a coincidence in life. I look up, there's a flower shop. And I drove in, and I got out of my car, and I'm walking towards the door, and I see I could just tell there was a dumpster, a blue dumpster, big metal one, and on the ground I could tell that there was a statue of the Virgin Mary because I've seen so many. I was born Catholic, not a good one at this point. I'm a zombie Catholic, but I walk over to it, and that's when my life changed. Christ literally said to me, "Will you deny me? Will you deny my mother?" And it started then. How I got this statue, because the woman in the store didn't want me to. She wouldn't. It was a family heirloom, and honestly, the challenge is at that point to get this statue, and I did, and I kept her broken. I called her Broken Mary. I started to go back to church at that time, and a priest told me where I could get her fixed, and I kept her broken because I was broken. She was broken at the waist, and her hands are missing, and she's sunk in the mud, covered in garbage, and now she is. Here we are. 2 books and a movie is coming October 7th, and it's totally amazing.
Well, the thing about the statue too is it's not like it's an artifact. It's a sort of statue that people might have in their gardens at their home. I mean, this is not like unique, but the context around it is what made it unique. And when I knew you were onto something and that there was a real connection that you were making with this story that you just told, is that procession from St. John Cantius you did several years ago, and the massive turnout for that. I'm like, okay, this is connect. Kevin, his story, and this statue as a representation of his story is really connecting with people.
Yeah, it literally that I found the statue in 2011. I would slowly, the story just got around. I was asked to speak at a church early, and I said this statue belongs to the broken. It's not mine. Take her. And parishioners were taking her. She died with parishioners in hospice and emergency rooms, the most broken. And in 2009, I really have become very attached to St. John Cantius. Our Lady of the Broken is what she's called now throughout the Catholic community. And in 2019, Father Joshua Caswell and the Canons, St. John Cantius is just a beautiful church. And it's up on Chicago Avenue in Ogden. Here's the interesting thing. They were going to bulldoze this church down. This church is over 150 years old. And it's been saved. It's been renovated. And we had almost 10,000 people walk with us on a Friday night in Chicago, down Chicago Avenue. The Chicago Fire Department and Police Department walked with us. We invited them because this city is broken. We all are broken. Every city's broken. And I love the Chicago Police Department, the Fire Department. They have become attached to this beautiful icon. And she went from a dumpster to a bed of roses. And Dan, what's amazing, 10 days ago, I made a video for Pope Leo in Rome. And I'm just her roadie. This statue, Dan, literally, I don't worship a statue, but where the statue's at, God is at, Mary is at, Christ is at, and it's changed lives. It's the miracles that have happened. The people, you'll see it in this movie, October 7th. The people can identify. We're all broken. I cannot get the image of Charlie Kirk out of my mind. And you take a look at what's happening in this country. I hope people literally go back to God. I'm not a evangelist with thunder and bolts of lightning, but had I not drove into that flower shop, and there's no question in my mind, I would be dead and in hell. I would.
Dead and in hell. I mean, so that speaks to a conversion story, which I've mentioned sort of at the outset, and to provide a little color on that. I mean, was it the MS diagnosis? What was it?
Well, I think it was just after a while you just ignore. We walk. I do. I want to keep this I, not we. I chose to walk away from God a long time ago. And I am back, thank goodness. And the MS, they thought at first it was a brain tumor. Where it was located in my brain, they couldn't operate. I would have died. And I just take a look back at that, and I was totally broken, and we all are. And what I love about it, I had a priest. I was speaking up in New Jersey last weekend, and this priest said, "Kevin, your MS is your stigmata." If you're familiar with the stigmata, if you are aware of Padre Pio, he had the wounds of Christ on his hands, on his feet, and on the side. He said, use that for the conversion of sinners. Use the soreness, the pain for the conversion of sinners. So anybody that's listening right now, if you have bad eyesight or you're going through cancer or you're take that suffering and give it to God, because it's a beautiful gift. And I want everybody to know, if you are diagnosed with cancer, or God did not give me MS because I had strippers at a golf outing. You know what I'm saying? I want people to know God is good. God is good, and you're not punished, but you have a chance to repent. And Dan, repent means change. Just change.
So I mean, with that message, how do you look back on your high flying days as a radio big shot then?
You know what, Dan? Honestly, I would not change a thing. I was so honored to be working with Bran Meyer and Steve Dahl and Gary Meyer, and we had the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan, 10 million people listening to The Loop. I was proud of that. I kind of compared myself back then to Chris Farley, my friend. But Chris went farther than I did, and he died. And you know what I'm saying? I was like that. I made people laugh. We all did. And we were all young and invincible. And at the same time, I'm blessed now. I've got, a beautiful family, and I've never been happier in my life, Dan. I have my purpose, and my purpose is to be God's shepherd dog. I just made a vow to Christ. I said, "You're my shepherd. I'll lead." And I'm old, and I'm broken, and I can't walk that well. I'm bruised. I'm a little sinful shepherd dog. And any lamb that comes to me that's waved away from you, I'll move them back without biting and barking. And I'm blessed. And anybody that, if you're Catholic, or even if you're not, you go to the Blessed Mother, and she's like any mother in a family. When I'd get in trouble and I knew my dad was coming home, I'd go to my mom. And that's exactly what happened at that dumpster. Jesus said, "I'm going to leave you with my mother, and she's going to clean you up." And here I am, 11 plus years later, 2 books, a movie, and I'm not getting proceeds or anything. The message needs to be out. We are broken. And again, I look at Charlie Kirk, and there's so much hate in this world, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I just your newfound perspective on suffering, that there's purpose in suffering. But I'm sure people want to know. So, you sort of alluded to it, but how are you doing health wise? Are you generally okay?
I'm around the broken. I ask our Blessed Mother, Mary, let the broken come to us, and the most broken have. And there's a woman that I absolutely adore and love. Her name is Lori Hastings. She's over here in Michigan. She's got muscular dystrophy. She's had it. The miracle that's happened to her is but she has MS. She has muscular dystrophy, and she and her husband raise money to give families, especially children, that need special needs vans and whatnot. I'm amazed at her. She's got all this happening, and yet she has the heart of God, if you will, to help out families and little kids that need a lift to get into a van. She buys the cars, and it's humbling, is what it is. It's absolutely humbling.
Now, for old time's sake, and before we let you go, is there Any possibility we could summon Jim Shorts for a prediction on Bears Raiders?
He's here because he works with Dave Kaplan now in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Jim,
yeah, I know who it is. I can't wait for this movie to be over. Seriously, they could have made a movie about me. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Jim. So fresh off their first victory, Bears Raiders this weekend.
Yeah, I love the Bears. Again, every time I think of the Bears, I think of nail polish.
What is that? Caleb and Angel Reese, I understand, have the same manicurist. Does that disturb you at all?
Okay. Can you imagine Dick Butkus looking at the nail polish? He'd take a hatchet to these fingers please. You know what? And it was Dallas. You know what? I'm glad they got the win. Now they're in Vegas. I think the point spread's 1.5 for Chicago. I'm taking the Bears to win. But again, I hope Caleb doesn't get cocky. I really do. And I was impressed. I want them to win. But Caleb, I don't know what it is. It's about him, not the team. I don't know what it is.
Kevin Matthews, longtime Chicago radio personality, of course, radio legend here, author of Broken Mary, A Journey of Hope, and Our Lady of the Broken.org, BrokenMaryFilm.com. October 7th, Tuesday, October 7th, go see Broken Mary, the Kevin Matthews story, theaters nationwide, one night only, October 7th, Tuesday, October 7th, Broken Mary, the Kevin Matthews story.
Yeah, it's all over Chicago, and Dan, I'd hope I can see it at one of the theaters in Chicago.
Looking forward to it. Kevin Matthews,
God bless you, buddy.
Thanks as always. Appreciate it. Great. Best of luck with the film. And Kevin Matthews joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
Chicago businesses, you can't afford to be down. You don't have time to wait for IT support. You need one company that does IT well and does it right. Meet Access One, your local Chicagoland IT experts. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One is here for you. Chicago owned, Chicago run, and serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore. Access One is the trusted IT partner for law firms, clinics, tech startups, to manufacturers. Rated top 5% in customer satisfaction and a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business. Access One is your one vendor for everything tech. Let's talk. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneinc.com. That's accessoneinc.com. Tech made personal, locally.
Hi, Dan Proft here. Data shows that boys make up more than 1/3 of those exploited in the sex trade. However, there are virtually no services available to male victims and survivors of trafficking and exploitation. They are often overlooked, ignored, and left without support. For 35 years, Emmaus has been on the front lines of an issue most of us can hardly imagine, helping men and boys in Chicago escape the nightmare of human trafficking and rebuild their lives. On Friday, November 1st, you're invited to attend an unforgettable evening at the Emmaus 35th Anniversary Gala at Fisherman's Inn in Elburn, Illinois. Together, they'll celebrate faith, freedom, and restoration with a beautifully catered dinner, an inspiring program, and a silent auction, all to support the mission of rescuing and restoring survivors. This is your chance to do something that truly matters. Reserve your seat today, or if you can't attend, make a life-changing donation at streets.org. That's streets.org. Emmaus is restoring lives. Let's help them keep going. Visit streets.org.
Be prepared for tax changes in 2025. Without a solid strategy, you could risk losing more of your hard-earned savings than necessary. VestGen Wealth Partners can help develop proactive tax plans designed to help keep more money in your pockets. Visit GetRetiredStayRetired.com for a free review.
Advisory services offered through VestGen Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Private Client Services, LLC, member FINRA and SIPC. Private Client Services and VestGen Advisors, LLC are unaffiliated entities. Any information discussed does not constitute investment advice. VestGen Advisors and Private Client Services do not Offer tax, legal advice.
Okay, this basement is unreal. You've got a bar, theater seats. What is this place?
This is my escape. Forever Remodeling custom designed the whole thing. Not 1 square foot is wasted.
Man, mine still has a treadmill and a folding table.
Their designers asked a ton of questions. I wanted the ultimate game day setup. They delivered. Bar, big screen, sound that shakes the walls.
Visit Forever Remodeling today at foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com. And tell them AM 560 sent you.
This is Seth Leibson for townhall.com. The UN recognizing a state of Palestine is in vogue. While the popularity of such a cause is increasing, so too is its danger, ignorance, and capitulation to ahistoricism. The Palestinian effort, Palestinianism, is a cause and ideology of hate and violence, no matter how dressed up its propagandists try to color it. The official emblem of the Fatah Party, which governs in the West Bank, is 2 rifles and a grenade over the entire map of Israel. As for Hamas, in Gaza, its entire covenant is a screed against Jews. And remember, the PLO was founded years before Israel ever had control of the West Bank or Gaza. It's not about statehood for a 22nd Arab state, but eliminating the state of Israel. Always has been. The Palestinian movement is marked by global terrorism, hijacking, rape, and killing, including massacres of kindergartners, Olympic athletes, and the assassination of a U.S. ambassador. A reward of statehood will yield little more than another Yemen or Libya, and the world has enough of that already. I'm Seth Leibson.
Hello, this is Alistair Begg. In September of 2026, I'll be teaching the Bible as we cruise through the Norwegian fjords. I'd love for you to join me. Call 855-565-5519 or visit deeperfaithcruise.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 8:08, we're going to talk to our friend Bob Woodson, Woodson Center, author of A Pathway to American Renewal. He knows quite a bit about violence, political and otherwise, and how it should be addressed. So lots to discuss with Bob Woodson. Also, I want to recount before the next hour is out and the show is up today, a conversation I had with Bill Napleton following the last couple of days of commentary and back and forth over the statements that Maureen Napleton made about Charlie Kirk and President Trump, for that matter. Had a good conversation with Bill Napleton that I'll relay to you next hour. It is now 8 a.m. on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
More executive orders. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. President Trump plans to sign 2 today. One would facilitate the deal to keep TikTok going as American business leaders work out a plan to buy most of the social media app from its Chinese parent company, as mandated by a law that would ban TikTok in the U.S. if there is no deal. Fox's Peter Doocy reports the other order targets extreme leftists.
Lawyers here at the White House are trying to figure out the proper language to use in a presidential order naming Antifa a domestic terror group. President Trump wants to use this order to make his point that he thinks an overwhelming majority of political violence in this country is coming from the left. And so he says on Truth Social, I will be signing an executive order this week to dismantle these domestic terrorism networks. I'm calling on all Democrats to stop this rhetoric against ICE and America's law enforcement right now.
The day after the shooting at an immigration enforcement facility in Dallas, Texas, Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin tells Fox this morning,
this is an open investigation. We are still very much looking at motive. We saw those shell casings with the anti-ICE messages, and we saw the monstrous actions of this individual targeting our ICE law enforcement.
No ICE agents were shot, but the gunman on a rooftop did kill one detainee and critically wounded 2 others before killing himself. The FBI director President Trump fired in his first term might need a lawyer.
James Comey could face an indictment for perjury over accusations he lied to Congress in September of 2020 during testimony about his handling of the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. A source says the Department of Justice is deciding whether to prosecute the former FBI director before a 5-year deadline to bring charges expires next Tuesday.
Fox's Ryan Schmelz. The economy was a little stronger than first thought in the spring. Second quarter GDP growth has been revised higher by a half point, up to 3.8%. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It is 61 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. A recent federal bust in Chicago seized nearly 5 million illegal vapes from China, but it has some of the nation's top health officials like HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. alarmed. Fox's Mike Tobin has the details.
FDA-approved vapes are only tobacco or menthol flavored. Anything that smells like fruit or candy, that's illegal. The head of the FDA says the marketing toward kids is working.
Yeah, we've got good kids from good families who are addicted. They know they're addicted, and they want to stop, and they can't stop.
Without FDA approval, there's no control of the chemical components. In September, federal law enforcement seized $86.5 million worth of Chinese-made e-cigarettes in the Chicago area, and that's just the start of a new enforcement crackdown.
Secretary Kennedy acknowledges that vape pens have been helpful with getting people to quit smoking, but he says people should stick to the legal ones. City officials in Broadview are demanding the fence around the ICE building be taken down. The Broadview Fire Department sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security within hours of that fence going up, informing the agency that the fence was built without a permit and is currently blocking the Broadview Fire Department's access to that road. The Department of Homeland Security has yet to respond to the city's demands. And a Chicago native is set to make history next summer. Fox's Michelle Polino has the details.
John Mulaney is taking his comedy to Wrigley Field. The Chicago native announced he'll headline the historic ballpark on June 11th of next year, marking the first time a comedian has ever played Wrigley. Mulaney shared the news Tuesday night during a Cubs game. But Michelle Polino, Fox News.
News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Overpaying for dental implants is over. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get your smile back. Check if you qualify at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes, but time now for the AM 560 Business Beat.
I'm Liz Clayman, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stock futures have been looking for direction. The S&P 500 lost ground for a second consecutive day yesterday. Delta Airlines is replacing power units on more than 300 of its A320 Airbus jets. The Wall Street Journal says the fix is to prevent toxic fumes from entering the passenger cabin. The switch is about 90% complete. The Journal reported earlier this month that the issue led to illnesses in both crew and passengers. New home sales jumped in August, up more than 20%, but that hasn't translated to more demand for all builders. KB Home is lowering expectations for the year after its profit declined in the summer quarter. The builder says though mortgage rates have fallen recently, it hasn't led to higher sales. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda. Invested in you.
Town Hall News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology. Written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at TruePowerGenerator.com. That's TruePowerGenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
Is cremation an option you're considering for you or your loved one? At Catholic Cemeteries, we offer sacred, permanent places of rest where loved ones can be remembered, prayed for, and visited for generations. Too often, cremated remains are brought home, only to end up in closets, basements, or forgotten on shelves. Memorialization is forever. Honor their life. Preserve your legacy. Visit us today at CatholicCemeteryChicago.org to schedule a free consultation or call 708-236-5490.
You ever wonder why Verizon charges twice as much as Pure Talk for the same basic service? Think it might have something to do with the fact that Verizon spends $12 billion a year on advertising and promotion? That's billion with a B. Yeah, Pure Talk doesn't spend that kind of money on commercials. That's why they can offer unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data on a blazing fast 5G network for just $25 a month. Save an additional 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say the words Mike Rowe. That's pound 250.
Micro.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft. If that happens, LifeLock gives you the U.S.-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims. Your agent handles it all. In fact, they're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. It's nice to have an expert like that on your side. Save up to 40% off your first year with promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
All right, heads up, we got some sticky spots here and there around the area this morning. On the Edens inbound between Elston and Montrose, about a 5-minute backup in the area due to solid traffic. Kennedy inbound between Central and Montrose, about a 10-minute delay in the area as well. The express lanes outbound on the Kennedy between Costner and Edens, about a 5-minute backup there. It'll take you about 45 minutes if you're inbound Ike from Wolf to the old post office. On the Stevenson, a 38-minute backup if you're inbound from 355 to DuSable Lake Shore. About a 30-minute trip if you're outbound on the Stevenson from DuSable Lake Shore to 355. The Dan Ryan watching a disabled vehicle blocking the left center lane if you're on the local lanes inbound between 59th and Cermak Road. Inbound I-55 from Route 47 to 355. That's the Veterans Tollway. Slow traffic building the area there. And the Tri-State Tollway, no major issues, just cooking up some slow traffic northbound between Stevenson and 47th. Traffic is a service of Fox Valley Coins. No waiting, no problem. No charge for in-store verbal appraisals. Bring your gold or silver in today. FoxValleyCoins.com. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer is next. Checking up on the forecast now from the National Weather Service.
Today, expect a morning shower in the area, then a mix of clouds and sun with a high of 74. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 56. Tomorrow brings sunny and warm weather with a high reaching 80. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. J.D. Vance had something very specific to say about violence as the means to political ends after yet another leftist-inspired attack on law enforcement. That's, of course, the shooting that occurred at the Dallas ICE facility yesterday that took the life of one individual, a detainee, and critically injured two others, as the reporting indicates. No law enforcement officers hurt, but clearly they were the target based on the evidence recovered. The vice president.
But we know this person was politically motivated. They were politically motivated to go after law enforcement. They were politically motivated to go after people who are enforcing our border. And I think that is the most disgusting thing. The very people who keep us safe ought to be honored and protected and praised by Democrats and Republicans alike. It is time to stop the rhetorical assault on law enforcement. Because here's what happened. Because here's what happens when Democrats like Gavin Newsom did say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence. You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
Okay, that was pointed. Something else that Vance said, though, mentioned earlier in the program, this is really important. It's not just the name calling, because the name calling has become so prosaic that I think it's discounted. Although I know that we've had some of these people that have given over to violence invoke some of the names that people are called with whom they disagree. Fascist, Nazi. But the more important thing to me, in my view, is the purposeful fabrications, the lying about what, in this case, ICE officers are doing, the assertions that they're kidnapping people, they're disappearing people, they're breaking up families, that cruelty and terror is the point of the execution of their duties, which is something Governor Pritzker has explicitly said. Incredibly true. Incredible that that's true, but it is true. And Vance had another example to those ends.
Maybe the worst of all the fake news, and I'm sure we have an NBC reporter out there. It's a tough competition, my friends, to be clear. But maybe the worst, I said maybe the worst, is NBC News. And they said that immigration enforcement, you know what they said? That immigration enforcement had detained a 5-year-old autistic girl in order to get to that girl's father. Turned out that story was a complete fabrication. It was a complete dishonest lie. But when you go around and lie about our law enforcement and you tell them that they're mistreating 5-year-old girls, what do you think is going to happen? When Democratic politicians incur doxing, when they encourage us to unmask ICE enforcement officers, what do you think is going to happen? When the mayor of Los Angeles encourages violent protesters to get in the face of our law enforcement, what do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen is political violence, and political violence has gotten out of control in this country. We got to stop it. We got to condemn it. And that starts, unfortunately, at the very top of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, those lies that the purveyors of agitprop tell give people who are unstable or who have given over to evil the basis for feeling righteous in the use of political violence against these enemies, these demons incarnate that wear ICE uniforms. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Bob Woodson, founder and president of the Woodson Center, author of A Pathway to American Renewal, Red, White, and Black, Volume 2. Should also get Volume 1. Bob, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
So, you know a lot about violence, political and otherwise. I mean, your perspective on the political, maybe even dating back to the civil rights movement, what we can and should learn for application today.
Well, I think as I look back on the experiences that I've walked through in the civil rights movement, for instance, I was just reading about how Dr. King in 1956, January 30th, when he was speaking there, the Klan firebombed his house, and his wife, Coretta, barely escaped with their 10-month-old daughter. And King rushed home, and when he got there, there were about 300 angry, armed black men ready to tear the city apart. Even in the presence of this kind of tragedy, King, he counseled peace. He told everyone, if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword, that everyone should go home. And as a consequence, we avoided this country could have turned at that point into a series of race riots with some justification. But King, exercising a kind of moral and civic leadership, counseled against that. And he said, we must continue to pursue nonviolence, and we must pursue agape love. And the best way to destroy your enemy is make him your friend. And that was carried on with another leader that I respect, Ralph Billups. He was a pastor, leader in Birmingham when he confronted Bull Connors, who ordered hoses and dogs on people and ordered his fire department to shoot demonstrators. And the firefighters unanimously disagreed, and they refused. And some with tears in their eyes said, we're not here. We have to put out fires, not kill people. So Billups was also the subject of a violent attack. But 4 Klansmen seized him from his home and beat him. Here he is as a World War II veteran with shrapnel in his head from the Korean War. He was targeted by the Klan. The members came, abducted him, used him, tied him to a tree, beat him with chains, and branded his stomach with KKK. Well, But when one of the assailants later showed up at his home offering to turn himself in, the young preacher prayed with him, and the two of them went around together to preach peace. So these are just stellar examples of people in the civil rights movement who exercise discipline, but also agape love. And when they had every justification to return violence with violence. So I just think it's important to understand that.
Right. No.
One other.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, but also when we're talking about what are the solutions, I think what we need to do is turn to those who are the immediate victims of this violence. Like in Washington, D.C., when Trump brought the National Guard in, there were demonstrations, but the demonstrations were white liberals from DuPont Circle.
Yeah.
When, by contrast, low-income people in Ward 7 and 8, that's the areas of the high crime, they were partnering with the soldiers to clean up the community in a partnership to restore order, because they are the ones suffering the problem. And so conservatives have got to find a way of changing out some of the messengers so they're not just politicians raising these issues, but giving the people suffering the problem an opportunity to speak for themselves. And that's how you undermine the moral authority of the left.
Yeah, I mean, we see some of that in Chicago with a group that's sort of grown organically called Chicago Flips Red. Now, there's a political overtone to that, clearly, but it is residents of the south and west sides of Chicago. It is them speaking in their own voices about the problems they see and what they don't see as action from their city and state government. And so, basically, it's a bunch of Democrats mugged by reality that are saying, the hell with this party. We've tried it for 100 years in the city and it's not working. So I think that, my sense is there's some utility to that, but I also think it's somewhat limited because it's particularly partisan. And I suspect you would suggest as well that the focus be on the substance of the matter and let people connect the dots to who is responsible or who has failed to act and who needs to be changed out in terms of elected officials.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, I don't think there's enough opportunity to turn the microphones over to the people in these communities who are suffering the problem and let them speak. For instance, defund the police. 80% of low-income blacks around this country are against defund the police. And yet liberal leadership, so-called Democratic liberal leadership, is for defunding the police. Destroying of the monuments and denigrating our rich heritage of, in other words, I really think we're missing an opportunity to give voice to urban patriots. These are the group in Alabama, Shreveport, Louisiana, rather, who some of these black fathers got tired of the violence in the high school, and they spontaneously went in and called dads on duty and took over the high school. And so they began to control the behavior of their own children. These are the kind of movements, spontaneous movements, conservatives need to get behind and support and fund and give the microphone over to some of the people suffering the problem to make the point, and not just coming from politicians.
Do you see a lot more of that sort of organic response to public safety issues in neighborhoods like the Dads on Duty example you just mentioned in Shreveport? Do you see a lot more of that occurring? I mean, you're much closer to it than most.
It is a lot. I spend a lot of time in these communities, and I don't hear in any of these communities assault on the values of the country. I don't see people burning Bibles and burning the flag. All of this is being done by elites who are outside. But when you go into these communities, I'll give you an example, Dan. Some years ago, when the Klan was demonstrating in a little bus of 20 tired old white men were demonstrating in D.C., there were about 3,000 people trying to tear them apart. And the Washington Post reporter went down into Ward 7, the whole high crime area, and asked a 72-year-old man if he was going to join the demonstration against the Klan. He said, bring the Klan down here if they can get rid of these drug addicts and these thugs.
Right. You're missing the,
Now, he was no conservative.
No, you're missing the point is what he's saying. Right.
You're missing the point that they're more concerned about public safety than they are the political views of people. And we must give much more attention and give the microphones over to some of these people so they can speak for themselves. Unfortunately, Dan, there are race grievance people on the right, too. There's some people who don't want this conflict to go away either because they're profiting from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you want to give an example of who you're talking about or what you're talking about? Like the approach that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, when I see just people standing up, just talking about the opposition and what the left is doing, you know, we need a positive strategy. You're not going to win playing defense all the time, talking about what the left is doing. Let's offer our own alternatives that address the real problems of our society.
Well, but I mean, you know, and I know you know this, but I mean, just to voice it, I mean, but there's even if conservatives did a better job of taking your advice in terms of funding these organic movements that are occurring in the neighborhoods that have problems, public safety problems in particular, and giving them, you know, the room to express themselves in their own way and take the leadership position. Even if that was happening, I mean, you still have things that financing can't solve going on in these neighborhoods that need to be addressed, you know, sort of culturally, sociologically, and that's really a challenge, isn't it?
No, yeah, but what I'm talking about, you know, is some examples of where there is moral leadership and having civic order. I just spent 2 days with the Pineywood School in Pineywood, Mississippi, a black boarding school that takes kids from some of the most challenged neighborhoods in the country, and yet 100% of them go on to college or post-secondary education, and they're living in a moral community, and they're all. So there are examples, and then there's a St. Mary's School in Louisiana. I mean, the Frederick Douglass School in Chester. There are places around the country where there is the presence of moral excellence, where there are moral communities that have been formed spontaneously by low-income people that demonstrate that these children and these communities can be redeemed from within. But you don't have conservative scholars going into these places where there has been zones of peace and writing papers about and interviewing the people who are creating these zones of peace. You don't have enough of attention to that.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, it's sort of like let's replicate and scale models that are working. Let's look prospectively rather than just spending all our time responding to the latest idiocy from Jasmine Crockett or Brandon Johnson or somebody.
Exactly. That's the point. And if you want to go way back, I mean, look at the Clackham Group in England. Just 20 people coming together for 20 years ended up causing the whole country, England, to abandon slavery when it was hostile to their economic interests. So there is historic examples of how a small group who have come together in a moral conclave, and they have changed and dramatically improved their society. So there are endless examples. But we don't spend enough time concentrate on how people have recovered from brokenness and giving them the opportunity to speak for themselves and act for themselves.
Bob Woodson, founder and president of the Woodson Center, author of A Pathway to American Renewal, Red, White, and Black, Volumes 1 and 2. Bob, thank you as always. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And Bob joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Did you know that AM 560 Radio has a full-service digital marketing division called Salem Surround? If you're a business decision maker, listen up. AM 560 listeners are everywhere your potential audience is. So are our incredible targeting capabilities. We localize digital marketing and put it within reach of every business, small and large, in Chicagoland and beyond. Salem Surround offers AI-powered marketing solutions that reach your ideal audience. Whether or not you tap into the proven live, local, and emotional connection that AM 560 Radio brings, Salem Surround offers a total marketing solution to our partners. All-in-one digital solutions that provide targeted local digital and social media ads, Google AdWords management, website services, video strategy, search optimization, and even a management dashboard to offer you total campaign updates and transparency. Your Salem Surround representative is located right here in Chicago. Experience the Salem Surround digital revolution today. Call 847-472-8951. That's 847-472-8951.
This is Seth Leibson for townhall.com. The UN recognizing a state of Palestine is in vogue. While the popularity of such a cause is increasing, so too is its danger, ignorance, and capitulation to ahistoricism. The Palestinian effort, Palestinianism, is a cause and ideology of hate and violence, no matter how dressed up its propagandists try to color it. The official emblem of the Fatah Party, which governs in the West Bank, is 2 rifles and a grenade over the entire map of Israel. As for Hamas, in Gaza, its entire covenant is a screed against Jews. And remember, the PLO was founded years before Israel ever had control of the West Bank or Gaza. It's not about statehood for a 22nd Arab state, but eliminating the state of Israel. Always has been. The Palestinian movement is marked by global terrorism, hijacking, rape, and killing, including massacres of kindergartners, Olympic athletes, and the assassination of a U.S. ambassador. A reward of statehood will yield little more than another Yemen or Libya, and the world has enough of that already. I'm Seth Leibson.
Are you turning 65 and thinking about Medicare? Or are you over 65 and haven't enrolled yet because you still have coverage at work? Either way, Medicare done correctly will be the best health insurance you will ever have. Imagine having an annual deductible of only $257. There are only 2 good things about aging, wisdom and Medicare. But to navigate the Medicare maze properly, you need a mentor. Best part? My guidance costs you nothing. Call me. I can help.
If you're tired of calling a bureaucrat at an 800 number to help you navigate Medicare, then you need a local expert on your side. Your own health insurance mentor. C. Stephen Tucker from healthinsurancementors.com is someone I know and trust. He's a 30-year licensed broker who's been educating our listeners for more than a decade. Steve, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Thanks, Dan. They can visit healthinsurancementors.com or call me directly at 630-674-1551. That's 630-674-1551.
If you need custom boxes and crates, expert packing and crating, import-export transloading with heavy lift capability, the DC Group delivers. It all started 51 years ago with DC Export and Domestic Packing, the hard work of founders Dominic and Carol Cochamiglio. Their family's desire to exceed customer expectations, backed by an incredible team and loyal customers, is now driving expansion. From their humble roots in a garage-sized building to 100,000 square feet in the Chicago area, 45,000 in Greenville, and a new Houston facility, they're coast to coast. And their sister company, DC Transport, handles everything from container drayage to super heavy haul loads across North America since 1991. Whether it's packing and crating, transloading, transportation service, or trade shows, the DC Group delivers. Those that attended FabTech 2025, we'd love to hear from you. Get your quote now at dcexport.com. That's dcexport.com, your trusted logistics partner.
AM 560, The Answer.
All right, coming up at 8:38, how much longer do I have to work before I can retire and focus on my short game? Tim Stearns, president and founder of TJ Stearns in Arlington Heights, joins us. He's also the host of Protect and Grow, Chicagoland Retirement. On these airwaves, Saturdays at 1 p.m., we'll talk to Tim Stearns about my retirement and perhaps a little bit about yours, too, at 8:38. And then, before we go, my call with Bill Napleton over the controversy instigated by Maureen Napleton, the intemperate, vile, despicable comments she made about Charlie Kirk and President Trump, for that matter. That conversation will be characterized and relayed to you before we check out today. But first, Tim Stearns, 8:38. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It is 63 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm Stace Keene in the AM 560 newsroom. Mostly sunny skies today, a high of 71. Cook County Sheriff's Office has received a grant from the Illinois Department of Transportation to help pay for additional countywide patrols that'll be focused on speeding. Officials with the department say they're also going to be cracking down on drivers who use the shoulder to bypass slow traffic. Those additional patrols started today and they'll run through the end of the month. A 39-year-old woman was arrested on Monday after witnesses say she broke into a private aviation hangar at Midway International Airport, stole a shuttle bus, and then drove it out to the taxiway. The woman reportedly told police she was testing security at the airport. And the Leo High School Boys Choir returns home to Chicago today after they placed fourth on America's Got Talent. Judge Simon Cowell told the young men that they were going to inspire so many people, something AGT voters across America already know. News is a service of Goldilocks, offering Chicagoland state-of-the-art smart security systems to protect your home or business. AM 560 listeners receive 3 months of monitoring free with new installs. Get peace of mind by calling Goldilocks at 708-889-5600. Again, that's 708-889-5600. A check of the roads comes up next on AM 560, The Answer.
Catch more money with leading economist Steve Moore.
I'm excited about America. I think things are going really well. I think we've turned a corner here. I think Biden economics is well behind us now. This is a miracle what's going on here. If anything, it's better than I thought it would be. So many good things happening in the economy. Low inflation, low unemployment rate, consumer confidence up, business confidence up. All of the indicators are pointing north right now.
It's More Money, Saturday at 3 on AM 560. The Answer.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving MyPillow with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss and your gain. MyPillow is offering the Classic Collection for wholesale prices. Only $19.98 for a standard MyPillow. But it gets even better. For a limited time, they're going to offer the entire Classic Collection at wholesale prices. Get queen-size MyPillows for just $24.98. Upgrade to king-size for only $29.98. Get the body pillows for $39.98. And the multi-use MyPillows for only $12.98. So go to MyPillow.com and use promo code LIBERTY or call 800-489-0201 to take advantage of wholesale pricing and receive $100 in free digital gifts when your order is $75 or more. That's right. Get the standard MyPillow for only $19.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. That number again is 800-489-0201. Promo code LIBERTY.
Sean Thompson here, and I'm with attorney Bert Hochberg from the law firm of Schiller, Ducanto, and Fleck. We're talking about divorce arbitration. This is not really a new, or is it a new, innovative way to go through divorce?
Arbitration has been around for decades. It's completely legit and available to resolve divorce cases. The litigants and their lawyers sign an arbitration agreement. They identify what the issues are, and we set up dates, and we determine what experts and witnesses there may be. Arbitration is a hearing, a trial that is intended to finish a case efficiently with limited appeal, with a binding decision, and it's confidential, so it has some great characteristics.
I think it's a unique alternative to divorce. For more information, please visit sdflaw.com and type Bert Hochberg into the search box. That's sdflaw.com or call direct 773-255-6150.
Overall traffic flowing along smooth this morning. Got some trouble spots here and there on the Kennedy inbound between Edens Junction and Chicago. About a 38-minute delay in that area. Watch for traffic stalling there. Coming into town from O'Hare on the Kennedy inbound, about a 65-minute ride. Kennedy outbound between Montrose and Sayre Avenue, about a 12-minute delay. 30-minute backup on the Stevenson inbound between First and Damon Avenue. On the Edens, it is stop and go if you're outbound between Montrose and Church Street. We've got some backups in the Eisenhower this morning coming in between 17th and Racine Avenue, about a 40 5-minute delay. Watch I-55 in Will County, getting sticky there between Veterans Parkway and the Tollway. The Dan Ryan's looking good. Inbound from 95th to the Burn Interchange, about a 33-minute ride. And DuSable Lakeshore, going south between Foster and Oak Street, about a 10-minute delay in the area. This report sponsored by Lowe's. Lowe's knows how to help make your home holiday ready for less. Refresh your space with select Style Selections vinyl flooring for just $199 per square foot while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for more details and qualifying items. I'm John Cruz. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now check out the forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today, expect a morning shower in the area with clouds and sun later. The high will reach 74. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 56. Tomorrow brings sunny and warm weather with a high of 80. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560. The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and as said, when can I'm sure this is a thought on a lot of people's mind, when can I retire and live the good life, focus on my golf game, don't have to worry about making ends meet, don't have to be under the thumb of the man. Tim Stearns is the president and founder of TJ Stearns in Arlington Heights. He's also the host of Protect and Grow Chicagoland Retirement. That is on Saturdays, noon to 1 p.m. on these airwaves. And Tim Stearns is in studio now joining us. Tim, thank you.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
All right. So, we just pour all our money in crypto and the S&P and watch it continue to go up at a 45-degree angle, and then decide how many millions we want to walk away with. And it's just as simple as that. Why do we need Tim Stearns?
Well, I think what I've noticed in our office, people coming in from this show and our other retirement classes, people are getting kind of lackadaisical. They think the market's just going to have all this steam forever. They not remembering 2008 or the early 2000s when the market was down 50%. We've seen these bounce backs. We're running into even advisors who've never seen a bear market, which I marvel at.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, other than COVID, which is a sort of obviously government induced, so you sort of discount that.
Exactly.
But you're right in terms of the cyclical nature of it.
Right.
Yeah, you probably have some young analysts and investment managers that maybe they really do think that you can't fight City Hall, and as long as we have all this money sloshing around and Jay Powell is singing for his supper, then we're good.
Right. And that's just not the case, especially if you're at the end of your road to retire. That is not something you should be doing. We had a gentleman come in the other day, 70 years old, and had 80% of his money in equities, stocks, which is insane. That there has to be a balance. And we've seen it bounce back. Well, what if it doesn't?
So what do you recommend, sort of, generally speaking, somebody that is overweighted in equities and at the end of their working career?
I would tell them to make sure that they don't have everything that's correlated. Meaning, if the stocks go down, bonds go down too. We've seen that. So make sure you have uncorrelated assets.
Hedge, real estate.
Exactly.
Like mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Now, not everybody is so bullish, at least thinking prospectively. I mean, we've had a couple. The Wall Street Journal profiled a guy who's, shorts the market and waits for the crash. Nassim Taleb, the Black Swan guy.
Yep.
He said this week, and this is circulating, every single human being should short U.S. Treasuries. I mean, it's one thing to talk about, rebalancing with respect to equities. It's another thing to be talking about shorting U.S. Treasuries, like the United States itself is in for a crash. I mean, what's your response to that sort of suggestion?
I think that's a little extreme, like I think it's a little extreme to have all your money in equities. So there has to be a balance in the middle, and that comes with having a protect and grow plan. And that's why we named the show that.
And when you have younger people, people that are in their 20s and 30s and just really getting into earning some real money in their chosen career, and they come and they want to talk to you about more exotic investments, whether it's private equity or cryptocurrency, what do you say?
I say tread lightly, especially when you're just starting out. I mean, you should be in your rank and file 401k, make sure that you're getting the match, that type of stuff. If you're down the road a little bit and you've got some money to your name, you want to try to go into cryptos, it's they're finding that those are correlated to the markets. So the whole come on at the beginning was, it'll be uncorrelated. When the market goes up, these cryptos will hold their own. They don't. They go down, cyclically with them.
And when you're talking about equity, since that's where most people are at, and that's where most of the attention is paid, there's some people that suggest these all-time highs can't be sustained forever. That's just what you're saying. So how do you address that without trying to make these predictions that hedge fund guys make, just in terms of thinking about it sensibly, understanding that what cannot go on forever won't, and the Stein's law, but like, what do you say to them now when things are going well and they don't want to miss out for record highs before at some point they pull back? I mean, do you try to pick that point with them, or do you just say, now's the time to just look at the distribution of assets and how you're weighted, and then make adjustments accordingly based on what you think is not a specific date, but within a reasonable period of time, there's going to be some volatility?
We are big believers in having stop losses, having tactical management, having a floor. We're happy, and they're going to be happy that they can share in the upside, but we're not going to share in the downside as much as some of these guys who are just buying and holding. We don't believe in that.
And so if somebody walks into your office today and they says, give me your handle on the investment landscape, and I've got let's say I've got $500,000 to manage, and I need to understand what makes the most sense consistent with those principles you just laid out.
We're going to tell them that we're going to make sure that they're not going to harm themselves. So we're going to make sure there's a balanced portfolio that's going to have stop losses, curbs on the sides of it, so that we're not going to get hurt if the market downturns, especially if someone's 70 years old and about to retire.
Mm-hmm. And thinking about retirement, planning that out in terms of the sort of lifestyle you have that you want to maintain, yep, and what that spend looks like, and so what you need to sort of the budget you need to live under, the expectations you need to have about what your return on investment will be combined with Social Security. I mean, that, looking at somebody who's 65 or 70 and saying, this is what the next 20 years is going to look like, and you need to start thinking about this accordingly.
Right. And 9 out of 10 baby boomers don't have a plan. So we actually build a plan for them. It's very interesting to me that there's two misnomers. Number one, I'll be in a lower tax bracket when I retire. I ask people in our classes all the time, and 99% of the people say taxes are going to go up. And then the other one is that we're seeing people just realizing that they need to plan for a 25 to 30 year retirement and address taxes, long-term care, health care cost.
Yeah, I mean, in Illinois in particular, I mean, even if your home is paid off, you have to think about budgeting for the carrying costs, right? And some people, property taxes are going to go up, but I mean, you really need to be sort of conservative in your expectations. I mean, in terms of like thinking, plan for them to go up more than you might think, what you think, and then add 20% based on what's going on in this state. And that, that's a material cost, and that can impact what you're doing otherwise.
Exactly. And you need to plan for that. And we get down to the nuts and bolts of everything. I think a lot of baby boomers seem to have a number in their head that they need to hit, and then they're going to be fine. That's not the case. You need to have a portfolio that's going to throw off income, and how are you going to get there and have safe income to ride out a 20% decline in the market?
Do you find that most people think that they're going to have more disposable income than they're actually going to have? Do they overshoot it or undershoot what they're likely to have to limit themselves to in terms of spend annually?
Well, 9 out of 10 Americans haven't addressed the long-term care aspect. So I think a lot of them kind of overshoot it. They think, well, if I have $4 million, I'll be fine. Well, I just heard of a gentleman the other day who's 68 years old and has the starting of dementia. He could live another 20 years with that, and those are things that can just drain down an account. So we're looking at the full gamut from A to Z: Medicare, Social Security, taxes, long-term care, your portfolio.
You said most people come in with a target in mind of what total assets I need in order to live the lifestyle to which I become accustomed. I mean, for the median household income, let's just say for round numbers here, it's $100,000. And, over the last 2/3 of my life, I made $100,000 or maybe a little bit more, that 100 to 150 range. And I've squirreled away a couple $1,000,000. I mean, is that sort of median for a upper middle income family in Chicagoland? That's sort of my sense of it.
In Chicagoland, yes.
And so I've got a couple $1,000,000 squirreled away in total.
Yes.
So is that enough for me to live the way that I've become accustomed to living in Arlington Heights?
I don't know that, because if the market does do like what it did 2000 through 2010, we call it the lost decade. The market did a lot of gyrations, but ended up at the same point in 2010 that it started in 2000. Well, if I'm drawing money off of that during that time, I will be down money. And, if it's down, 50% in my first couple of years of retirement, then that could hurt really badly.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, maybe people watching online, your son is in the business now.
Yes. Jake Stearns.
He's been hired. I mean, I'm not, just between us here. Hopefully Jake's not paying attention. I saw this piece about Gen Z in the Wall Street Journal, this professor at NYU's business school. They surveyed 2,100 experienced hiring managers in knowledge industry roles, that rely on human capital like yours.
Yes, sir.
The value of wanting accomplishments and success other people can see was first for hiring managers. That value came in 11th for Gen Z. 61% wish they had less of it in their lives. 61% of Gen Z had less wanting to see accomplishments and success. The next for hiring managers was scope, which reflects the desire of learning, action, and stimulation. That ranked 10th for Gen Z. Third for hiring managers was work centrism, the desire to work for work's sake. That's 9th for Gen Z. Then calculated how many Gen Z respondents identified achievement, scope, and work centrism in their top 5 values. Out of the 45,000 people who took the test, 154 identified achievement, scope, and work centrism in their top values. So I just want to give you a heads up.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not, Jay could be a black swan. He could be in the 2%. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying you got a Gen Z problem a little bit.
Well, my dad always said Jake was an old soul, and I'll give you one example. Is we would, being raised by a financial planner, right? He'd see a new neighbor, and I'd say, "Oh, John Smith has a new car," and Jake would go, "It's probably a lease, right, Dad? He didn't pay for it." And that is a perfect example.
Okay.
Of all 3 of my boys kind of understand how a dollar works.
Very good. Yes, you've weaned them well.
Yes,
Very
sir.
good. All right, Tim Stearns, president and founder of TJ Stearns in Arlington Heights. Host of the show Protect and Grow Chicagoland Retirement, which is Saturdays on these airwaves from noon to 1. Again, you tune in to 560 The Answer for Protect and Grow Chicago Retirement with TJ Stearns. Tim Stearns, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, thanks for having me.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Business owners, now's the time for your business to make the move to a locally owned business bank. Hi, Mike Gallagher here to let you know that you don't have to look far. Signature Bank was founded in Chicago with a simple mission to help companies like yours grow, succeed, and thrive. Their decisions are made locally by a terrific team that knows your name, cares about your business, and invests in your success. That's why Signature Bank is my bank. I'm a customer. As business owners, they knew that local family-owned businesses were not getting the help they needed or deserved. So I invite you to reach out to my friends at Signature Bank today. Write the number down. Remember this phone number, Signature Bank, 773-467-5630, and learn all about this great bank, 773-467-5630, or visit them online at signaturebank.bank. That's signaturebank.bank. Signature Bank makes commercial banking personal. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
You've heard me talk about Northridge for years, but now I want you to hear from one of their recent graduates, TJ Gorman, who just graduated second in his class in Marine Corps basic training. This is what he said. I was blessed to attend Northridge not only for the education, but for the values and principles my mentors instilled within me. The school taught us what it meant to be a leader and lead through example, hard work, humility, and empathy. I thank God for Northridge. That's what makes Northridge Prep great for young men. The students are called to excellence to become true leaders. And these boys want to go to school each day. They love Northridge because they can be free to learn, to grow, and to be challenged. There's a real spirit of adventure on campus that you've just got to experience for yourself. For nearly 50 years, they've partnered with parents like no other school in the Chicagoland area. Today, in our nation, we need more Northridge graduates to lead the way as men of intellect and character who love God. Guys like TJ Gorman, men who put their values first. Their open house is Sunday, October 19th at 1 p.m. for boys in grades 6 through 12. Register at northridgeprep.org. northridgeprep.org.
Hey, I'm Brant, and her name is Sherry.
Hello.
She's a friend of mine whom we were just praying for because of a surgery she just went through.
Yes, and I am very happy about something you actually talk about all the time, which is
Medi-Share.
That is right.
Yeah. So what was your experience like with Medi-Share and the healthcare bills?
Honestly, Brant, seamless. And what a blessing that is when you're already nervous about a health issue, which I was.
Yeah.
Members shared my expenses. There were zero problems. And let me tell you, having people pray with you when you call in with your need, that is just...
It is refreshing.
Yes, that's what it is.
What I keep telling people, people love Medi-Share, and they love saving tons of money, too. The typical family can save $500 a month.
I am very thankful for Medi-Share. It is so different, and I mean different in a very, very good way.
It is good different. Call now. They're easy to talk to, and you can get a price within 2 minutes. Call 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE. 833-34-BIBLE.
AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft. And as promised, I wanted to bring the Napleton story that we've been talking about all week because of the intemperate comments of Maureen Napleton, a lawyer who worked with the Napleton Auto Group, which, of course, is a very well-known brand in Chicagoland. And they have car dealerships in several other states as well. The family does. So this instigated by the vile things that Maureen Napleton said about Charlie Kirk after his assassination. I'd be so very happy to dance on this MFer's grave, blah, blah, blah. And she hopes Trump is next. It's just all sorts of ugliness. Some of the uglier comments that have been offered by anybody on the left. And you would expect it from a Raffle in the Western Burbs. She's in Western Springs. And, again, just to recount the story for people who hadn't followed this all week. So we had a gentleman call in and say, Maureen is an outlier. That's not representative of the Napleton family. It's not representative of the many employees that Napleton has. I'd hate for the company to suffer because of the ill-conceived comments of one member of the family. And I said that, that's fair. That's fair. Nothing against Napleton Automotive Group, nothing against the family. Heard good things from friends that we have in common, or that I have in common with at least some of the Napleton principals of their vast automotive empire. And I was happy to leave it at that. Then the Napleton Automotive Group issued a statement which was appropriate, saying they condemn all forms of political violence, believe in respectful discourse. But they said that the individual responsible for the posts was not employed nor affiliated with the Napleton Auto Group in any capacity. And that's not really true. And so I said that. And I said, the statement otherwise was fine and it would have put it to bed. Just don't be cute. Just own it. Say that person is a member of our family, doesn't represent our views, and we repudiate what she had to say because we believe in respectful discourse. And that would have been the end of it. Okay. And then it's not the end of it because they kept pushing the issue. So then, as I discussed yesterday, both myself and my friend and somebody I do business with, Brian Timponi, get demand letters from some law firm representing the Napleton Auto Group talking about how this was inaccurate. She's not legal counsel for any Napleton family interests, and they want a retraction, and they want to have a conversation about a more permanent, a remedy for this situation. And it was threatening in tone. Of course, it's a demand letter. And there was some persistent email, are you going to respond? Are you going to respond? So we have lawyers. Yeah, our lawyer's going to respond. And then we dug up the information that basically confirms that what was reported in the DuPage Policy Journal is true. And so that was it. And I said the same thing after that I said the first day when I said, look, it's her. We're just using her as an example of some of the hatefulness of the left because she decided she wanted this attention. So here you go. You get attention. And it's so typical of these hate-mongering raffles in the wealthy suburbs. And I'm sick of it. Okay. So now yesterday, I get word that Bill Napleton, who is one of the principals, he owns a bunch of dealerships, wants to talk to me. I said, sure, I'll talk to him. And so he calls me. We have a conversation. And I got to say, he was, perfectly respectful. He completely understands the position. I'm not going to get into specifics of what he said. It was a private conversation, but I'll characterize it. And I told him I would. He totally gets it. Actually, he says he listens to the show regularly. He knows the stuff. And he was respectful of the show. And he said, look, I'm characterizing. We're getting, done with the lawyers. Obviously, I'm calling you directly to have a conversation, which I probably should have done in the first place. I got some bad advice, as I think would be a fair characterization of what he had to say. And I agreed. And I said the same thing I said on the air, which is I respect the business. I respect your employees. I don't want anything bad to happen to your business. We're not calling for boycotts. We're not calling for anything. We just have to be honest about things. And if everybody was just honest about things right at the front, a lot of this acrimony could have been avoided, and all the heat that the Napleton Auto Group is taking a lot of it could have been avoided too. So anyway, the upshot is it was a good conversation. I think he was a decent guy. I think he was a genuine guy. He promised that he would throw in the rust proofing for the next car I buy. No, I'm just kidding. So it was the sort of conversation that an adult would have with another adult about somebody in their family who did something wrong, and there's acknowledgement and there's a recognition that it is representative only of that person's views. It is her conduct and it's limited to her, and it is not, some sort of corporate ethos at Napleton to believe those sort of things or to express those sort of things in such a classless way as she did. But it is limited to her, and that's where sort of any reputational damage should stay as far as I'm concerned. And I wanted to convey that because we want to be fair to everybody on this program. And as I said in discussions about this earlier in the week, everybody has a circumstance where, parent and kid don't agree on politics or something, and one embarrasses the other. And so this is not a unique situation. And I would just suggest that we ratchet down the invective in the direction of Napleton, and let's tamp all of this down and just recognize what it was and move on productively. So, okay, I've told my story, and I appreciate Bill Napleton calling me. Thanks everybody for joining. It is now 9:00 AM 560 WIND.
He wants to dismantle domestic terror networks. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, and President Trump hopes to do it by executive order days after designating Antifa a major terrorist group on the left.
He's got public sentiment on his side when it comes to addressing politically motivated violence. 71% nationally say it's a very serious problem. 22% say somewhat serious in this brand new Quinnipiac poll.
Fox's Peter Doocy at the White House.
Once this order is signed.